anybody have an extra pen I can borrow? I apologize. All of my suit coats have pens that I've kept, but now I'm not wearing this, and so but I need it. Thank you, Michael. All right. The time is 5:32 p.m. It is Thursday, July 28th, and I'm going to call this special city council meeting to order. With the city secretary, please call the roll.
Mitchell.
Here.
Rizzo.
Present.
Ellison. Flores Kale.
Here.
Bradshaw.
Here.
Parsley.
Here.
Tobias.
Here. All right, 6 members present. We have a quorum. Next up, citizen comments period. At this time, we ask anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward and speak to please do so. We ask that you limit your comments to 3 minutes and you direct those comments to mayor and council. We also ask that you fill out a citizen comments form and submit that to either myself or the city secretary. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to come forward? Seeing none, I'm going to close citizen comments. It's now closed. Next up, consider possible action to direct staff to bring forward a resolution amending the city's personnel policy regarding a cap payout of unused accrued leave time upon retirement or departure of employment within the city. Ms. Sandra Duran.
Sandra Duran for the record, HR Director. City Council asked us at the last meeting to bring a proposal for changes in our accrual rates for vacation and sick leave. And so I think Jerry's going to pull it up. And what you will see is we are showing you what our current policy is and what the proposed policy is. And right now, our current vacation leave is in tiers. We have 3 tiers. We have 1 to 9 years, 10 to 19, and 20 plus. And so we are proposing to break it down even further, 0 to 4 years, 5 to 9, 10 to 15, and 16 plus years. We did compare it to other cities that we compare our salaries with and met in the middle where everybody's at. And I don't know if that's too tiny for you to see.
Can we get an email on that, please, so we can take a look at it? Thank you,
I
Jerry.
think you sent it, didn't you?
It's in the backup.
Is it?
Yeah.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry.
And so the first tier, the 1 to 9, currently the employee is getting 80 hours per year. And so we're proposing that 0 to 4 would be 80 hours. Because it takes a long time for an employee to get 3 weeks of vacation. It'll take them 10 plus years to earn that. So we're proposing that now it would be after 5 years that they get the 3 weeks of vacation. And we have it broken down per working days, but also per hours. You have some work shifts that are about 12 hours, and so we always account our benefits being an 8.0 hours. So vacation, sick leave, funeral leave, jury duty, all that is an 8-hour bracket. So that's why we have it broken down that way. And then the tiers, the next tier would be 10 to 15, they would get 4 weeks, and then 60 plus years, you get 5 weeks, which equals to 200. And then on the vacation maximum accrual, currently, somebody can get up to 288 hours if they worked for the 3rd tier for them to get paid out if they were to leave the city or if they were to retire. And so we're proposing that 720 hours will be able to get paid out for that. Accrual up to 720. So bless you. Sorry. Accrual up to 720, but you only get paid out And if you look at number 3, that tells you what it gets paid out. All employees ending employment with the city of Kyle shall be entitled to receiving payout of their accrual up to 480 hours. And that's right now what we have currently for our sick leave. That's all on vacation. Is there any questions on vacation before we go on to sick?
So I have a question, Councilman Tobias, for the record. When it comes to the vacation leave, when does that, do y'all not offer any kind of personnel days, like at the beginning of January, like at the beginning of the year, like 3 days of accrued personal days?
We don't. Like in other companies, there's PTO, and I think maybe
Yes.
that's what you're meaning.
Yes, ma'am.
So the PTO is sick leave and vacation combined. Here for the city, we have it separate. So we have vacation and sick. There's a policy for sick leave that you can only take it if it's for sick. So if you just want a day off just because you cannot, in this current policy, take sick days, you would have to take vacation, or we have floating holidays too that you can take for that.
Okay,
And we have 2 floating holidays currently.
so 2 floating holidays, okay. And so from day one, they have to, day one, it's got to basically be based on years of service before they get to 2 weeks. So let's say after the first year or after the first month, or 2 weeks in, when does it start? Let's say somebody starts in February 1st. So come April, 2 months later, do they qualify for the 80 hours?
No,
Or
it's
they
an
qualify-
accrual. They accrue. So they accrue, I don't know exactly the amount. It's 3.67 or something like that
Per
per
every 40
pay
hour.
period.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that would be for two weeks.
Okay. So for every month they work, or for every 40 hours they work, they earn 3 hours of vacation time?
For every 80,
For every 80?
Yes.
Oh, okay, for every
every 2
80.
weeks.
Okay,
And that's how they earn their sick leave as well.
okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I just add that our policy, if you're on probation for the first 6 months of your employment, you're not allowed to take vacation for that 6 months without approval. So that gives you a chance to accrue it some time.
Because I'm a big advocate for employees to take vacation as much as possible, or when it's earned, because it's well-deserved. It also helps with the mental flow of the person and the employee themselves, and I wanted to make sure that it's easier for the employees to be able to have those hours available and use them when needed.
So for me, it's a question of, so you're talking about up to 700 hours. They're able to roll those over per year, or do they die at the end of the year?
So you can have, currently you max out at double what you earn. So if I'm at the tier 1 to 9, then 80 is what I accrue for the year, and so the double is 160, so I stop accruing after 160.
Okay, so you just stop accruing after that 160. Okay, so
Correct.
it's not, somebody couldn't end up with 300-400 hours. It's going to die right there, right? Gonna terminate.
Correct, but we are proposing that we change it, and that the maximum accrue now is 720 hours. As opposed to right now, the highest tier is 288.
I do want to state that for someone to accrue 720 hours, they would literally not have to take a day off for almost 9 years. So that the possibility of that happening is, I can't even imagine. And if you don't take a day off in 9 years, then you deserve that much time off. That's just my opinion.
Well, what I was getting with that is that I actually know quite a few people that worked for the city of Austin that accrued that much time and never took a day off. And what they did at the end of they're getting close to their retirement date, they were able to use those hours to retire earlier than possible. That's what I was going with that. getting
That's
there.
great.
So, yeah, so I was wondering if that was an option.
To use vacation towards the end of their career?
Yes, they can. I've had people that take off before they leave. It just has to be negotiated with, not negotiated, but approved by the supervisor. Right now, what's happening if there's a work center that's short-staffed, everybody feels guilty taking off because who's going to pick up your workload? So not a lot of people are using their accrued leave. And so we need to make sure that we encourage that, because that's also, we all need time off for our mental health. And so we don't want them to be overwhelmed and not feel like they can't take it off, and then they're going to lose it because they didn't take it off.
Yeah, and I've gotten to know some people that work for different entities where that's their mental health, is being at work. They're not comfortable anywhere else. It's like the job is their life and they love it. I mean, I commend them for that, because that's what makes them happy, right? Whatever makes you happy. But, I was just making sure that, if you're saving all these hours, there'd be a reward at the end. And so that'd be great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, moving on to sick leave. Right now, 4 hours per pay period, or 96 hours, is the accrual rate. And so there's no changes with the accrual rate. The maximum that you can accrue, again, is 480. And we do have a lot of people that hit that mark, and because they haven't taken any sick, they can't accrue anymore. A lot of people save their sick leave because they don't know what's going to happen to them or to a family member, so they would be able to take off if something does come up and they need to take FMLA. And so it's important that we look at if 480 is enough to stop the accrual. We are recommending that there is an unlimited accrual of sick leave hours, but not all hours will be subject to payout. The payout right now, an employee has to work at least 10 years with the city and retire or go through disability to be able to earn a partial of those 480. And what we're proposing is that all employees ending employment after 5 years of service with the city of Kyle and in good standing, or upon retirement through TMRS, or upon death, shall be entitled to receiving a payout of their actual accrued vacation leave balance up to a maximum of 480. So whatever their balance was on vacation, to match that if they have that on their sick leave. And if it's upon death, of course, it goes to the beneficiary. Maximum hours paid at termination of employment currently is 0. And so lower of actual accrued sick leave balance, or 480. And maximum hours paid at retirement or death, again, 480. And it's a portion of it, depending on how many years you worked. And again, we're proposing that we lower of actual accrued sick balance of 480, or 480 hours cap.
Thank you.
Any questions on that piece?
So originally it was 10 years, and we're going down to 5 years for the payout?
Well, it's 10 years if you retire with the
Yeah.
city.
And
And so
then
to
the-
retire with the city, you have to work 20 years or be 60 years of age. And so right now, we're proposing that you don't have to retire with the city. If you worked at least 5 years, then you can get that as your payout.
So originally it was a reward for retiring with the city, and now it's just a reward for being 5 years, correct?
At least, yeah,
At least 5 years?
and in good standing.
Can you even accrue that many hours after 5 years?
No. You calculated how many,
I don't have the math on me, but I'm thinking basic math tells me no.
Okay, good. Thank you, Perez.
You're
All right,
welcome.
I feel better about it then. All right, thank you.
So I'm just gonna say that I am, initially looking at this, you're thinking, wow, that's a huge jump, right? Like, that's a lot of numbers that's going up. But then when you just focus on what we currently have, we are way behind. People don't work for the city for the pay, right? Usually you work for the government or the city for the benefits. And then when you come here and we're struggling to meet pay and our benefits look like this, I think it makes it hard to retain or to hire people. So with that said, I'd like to make a motion to approve this policy the way it is.
You mean the proposed policy?
Correct.
Okay. Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Flores Kale, seconded by Councilmember Parsley, that we approve the proposed policy changes to the personnel for accrual of payout and accrual and payout of vacation and sick leave. Is there discussion on the motion?
Have some say, sir. This goes to the employees that are out there, from somebody who has pretty much almost that much in sick time and vacation from years past. I encourage you to try to do your best when you do qualify for vacation, and for supervisors to really look at the employee, and if they're needing time off, to do your best to give it to them for their mental health. And also for those who don't use sick time, make sure you take care of yourself. And again, this is just me. Again, a lot of it has to be approved, but somebody shouldn't really have to get up to 480 hours of sick time. If everybody has illnesses here and there, but it gets to the point to where I just encourage people to take their vacation time when you can, and to utilize this, and just don't look at it like, okay, I'm going to hold on to this until the end of the year, or when I retired, I'll take that. But again, that's your choice, and who might say. But just going forward, do your best to try to give yourself that time off to where it doesn't have to get that high.
I just also want to state that according to the TMRS, they're going to be unable to do it retroactive, so this is just going to be going forward.
That would have been my hang-up, but I see it. It's in the policy beginning September 25th, so I'm good with it. Anyone else? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, agenda item number 2, establishing and approving nominations for Council Compensation Committee per the city charter. We had, most folks were able to get their names in, so that you can look. They do have, Councilor Ellison's not with us anymore. And Councilor Tobias, did you want to add? Yeah, I think you'd already submitted a name as well.
Yes, sir, I did. Apologies for not getting in time. I know it was kind of down to the wire,
Right.
so I could go ahead and add my name. That would be Brandy Heidel.
Okay. And Councilmember Flores-Kale?
I emailed it late, so my apologies. It is going to be Mario Lopez. Perez, sorry, Mario
Mario
Perez.
Lopez.
Sorry.
Slater? Slater's showing up? Mario
gonna be here.
Perez.
Boy, you got some connections.
I do.
I know who's voting on
All
that
right,
one.
does anybody have any questions or comments regarding the nominees? I would just say I would think that it would be best not to nominate someone who's planning to run for council in the upcoming budget year. So that's my thought on that. So I don't know if there's preparation over the course of the next 2 weeks if we're nominating a council member. So my only feedback on your nominee is that, if that nominee is preparing to run for council and then on the compensation committee, it kind of defeats the purpose of having a separate. So I don't know that that is the case, but if that's the case, there might be a consideration for someone
sorry, what?
differently.
So the committee's only good for how long?
Couple weeks.
So does that interfere if it does happen?
I would personally think that appointing someone to the council compensation committee that is preparing to file over the course of the next 2 weeks to run for an office to make a recommendation when they stand to benefit or whatever from that would just be more appropriate, I would think, to bring someone else that's not potentially
I
about
have
to run
no
for
doubt
office.
in my mind that if my nominee were to run, that he would try to give more to the situation than he would to be fair. Does that
I
make
think
sense?
that's exactly the point I'm trying to make, that's not the point of the committee. The point of the committee is to be a
Right.
separate body that stands to not benefit or be impacted by it, so they can make an impartial recommendation to this board.
Yeah, that was not in the motion.
What's that?
That was not in the motion that was made. There was no like hangups in that. So if you'd like to ask him if he plans to run, that's fine, but at no point I didn't think that was going to be an issue.
I'm just giving you my feedback.
I appreciate it. But I mean, it doesn't preclude people from actually running, so.
Well, I would like to just address my nomination. Brandy Heidel is somebody who has lived in the city of Kyle for many years. She is also part of the HOA in her area. She served on different committees and charitable events that includes 5K races around the city. And so, yes, she may have been an opponent of mine 2 years ago, but she's willing to serve then, but she's also willing to serve now. As far as her plans, or if there's plans, that has nothing, that never came up. It's just, I feel that she would be a great asset to this committee. She would be able to look at the facts, and I would support her on any recommendations or suggestions she has. And she would be, in my opinion, a great nomination, and I really hope I would get the support from council on her name.
I mean, does that matter if someone's previously run twice? Do you think that would make it biased?
No, I do not. I think if someone is preparing to run imminently and is
So do
going
we
to
need
be
to ask
following-
everybody if they're preparing to run?
What's that?
Specifically did ask my person.
Yeah.
I'm very,
That's fine.
that's very good. I'm proud. But my point is, I didn't know that's what we were doing. I didn't understand that part of the motion. And I felt like if somebody had previously run, what if they plan to run again?
There's a difference between that and imminently running right away as a part of being on a committee. You can politicize that, so it's pretty easily, and turn that into opportunities for speechifying.
Yeah, I guess never in a million years would I think that. I just picked somebody that I really believed would be able to do the job, that understood.
Okay. Well, all right.
Is there a motion on the table, sir?
There's not,
Okay.
but I'm not going to vote for Mr. Perez. If he's getting ready to run for office. So I'd like to take that one separately. I'm not saying that y'all can put him on if you want, but I just can't vote for that. So
Okay.
Well,
Ma-
I'm
ahead.
sorry, hold on. Before you say I'm not going to vote for him, I think that you should ask him, are you planning on running? Because if you don't know for certain, do you see what I'm saying?
Right, and in that case, can we
And
please
he's-
ask everybody?
Yeah, he's here.
We can ask all of our nominees, that would be appreciated. Because it feels a little bit discriminatory. Well, I said it feels like, I didn't say it was. I'm just saying if you're going to,
No, I totally understand where you're coming from, and that was one of the priorities when I chose mine, was that they had no political aspirations whatsoever, because there is a bias there.
That's where
yeah,
I'm
no,
getting
I
at, too.
apologize
don't-
if people think there's a bias. That was not ever, that is not, was not, will not ever be my intent.
well,
I just feel
yeah,
like
I
it's
just
somebody who's used the card before, I think that's pretty relevant.
use the card.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's used a city credit card, so he kind of understands, like, the expectations and the rules. Like, that's what I was looking at. I wasn't looking at anything else. To get a name out there, I just said, wow, this person knows, and he's, for what, how many, 15, 20 years? So I think he would understand, so I thought that would make him a great nominee. I still don't get, like, politics, I guess. I just don't get it.
Okay. Well,
Are we voting on everyone individually? Is that how we're going to do it then?
I wasn't planning on it until I
I-
found out that we had somebody getting ready to run for office who's going to be nominated to the committee. So it's not the ideal setup for me. So just wasn't going to vote for that person. So I was going to motion for the rest. But I'm not intending to make it the way that I am. But you're nominating somebody who's
I'm
about to
just
fall for
confused.
office,
Well,
most likely.
Mike, I guess my concern is if you're going to call out my candidate or my nominee, why would you not say something to somebody who's already ran twice?
It's just a
for,
different.
yeah,
The
it's a citywide position.
the circumstances are different. So
I guess again, I don't understand that.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the council member nominations for the compensation committee for the charter according to what's the names that are listed.
Second.
motion by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale. Is there discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
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 All opposed. Motion carries 6-0. All right, next up, agenda item number 3. So we got a formatting issue on this. there's actually two items, so this one got put on weird. But there's a 3, and there's actually a 4 and a 5, so I'm hoping y'all can understand that. So consider impossible direction to staff to direct an ordinance calling a special election for city charter amendments to include but not limited discussion on the following topic. Okay, so it is just one item, Jennifer? Is this all just one item on number 3?
It is just one. I just added extra language that didn't have to be there, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, it's just, all right, so we have an item that's being proposed on this by Councilmember Parsley to take action on an amendment to the city charter to include assistant city manager and all department directors in the dismissal confirmation process. The city council shall be legislative and governing body of the city and shall have control of all the city finances, property functions. I'm not going to read all of this. So the proposed change that's being proposed at the end is appoint, supervise, and remove the city manager and confirm dismissal of the director of finance, all assistant city managers and department directors by majority officer hired paid vote of the city council. And this is Councilmember Parsley's proposal. So, Councilmember Parsley.
Thank you. So we all currently know that the city has had a huge turnover over the past 6 to 7 months, and some of our most valuable employees have really been either, like people with 15 years of experience, have either been forced to resign or have been dismissed. So I believe that it's part of what we do as council members to make sure that the city is really flowing smoothly. All the employees are being treated fairly, and that I would like to make sure that the process is being followed to the T. I have requested, I'm not trying to micromanage what's being done right now, but I would like to make sure that all the policies and procedures in order to dismiss the directors or the assistant city managers have been followed. I requested information July 19 about the dismissal of a couple of the department directors, and I have not gotten anything. I believe it's really expensive to train and hire people. We have had positions vacant since before I got in council and are still not being fulfilled. Well, I think one of them just got fulfilled. So I would like to extend the same gratitude that we have for Mr. Perez, which I am extremely grateful that somebody did that for him. I would like to extend that to the directors and the assistant city managers to include the chief of police. And let me get my chart. City engineer and city building official, chief building official. And that will have to be a charter amendment.
Okay, just real quick, I think I know where you're going with this. I don't really think this is the way of going about it, and the reason why is that we would be micromanaging. We would now be the bosses of these employees because they would answer to us now. But I think the best way to get to where you want to get to is by implementing something that we've always talked about, never done, and that's putting in a policy to evaluate the city manager at the end of the year. If we were to bring in a clear policy, we could evaluate and rectify a lot of what we're getting right now. I think that would be the road that you're probably looking for. I'm just speculating. I'm just saying. But if we were to do this, then they would no longer answer to the city manager directly. And that's what my fear is, that you're eliminating the chain of command because now they know the city manager couldn't hold them accountable, which is his job. And now they could pretty much do what they want.
Okay, let me just kind of give you an idea of what I would like to see.
Okay.
We're not gonna be the people who's gonna fire, whoever staff member is not doing the job. What I would like to see is if somebody is gonna get fired, then show me what was done. Have you followed all the policies? Did you make the director sign performance improvement plan? How did that, what was the findings from that? Did the staff member learn the lesson, rectify it or not. So I don't know if that's being done. I really don't. I don't know if the people who left the city left because they were being forced to resign in order not to get fired and have that on the record or not. Because we don't have opportunity to talk to them.
So
So
it's
how do
being
we
transparent
fix
with
that?
the policy.
Yes.
So, okay, that's what you're getting for.
I
Okay.
would like transparency with the whole process.
Because I thought you were getting to where, when you talked about Perez, you talk about Perez cannot be terminated unless it's a council vote, and that's a little different, I mean, than what we're.
Wouldn't
that's
you
what I was
want to
worried about.
see that the city manager tells you, hey, we're trying to terminate this person, this is what we have done, none of it has worked, and you have documentation, great. I trust you, that's your job, that's your people.
Okay,
But
it's just
show
saying-
me that you have done it, but that's
Yeah,
what I would like to
So
see.
it's just bringing documentation to the council is what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay,
I'm not
good with
asking,
that.
hey, yes, you're voting him. No, you're not.
Okay.
Show me before you do it. And also, it will be great to have a plan in place. If I'm gonna fire somebody, have you kind of looked around what we're gonna do without that person? How long are we gonna be? We are like functioning at 50% right now.
Okay. All right, yeah, I was just a little worried
I'm
because,
trying to protect jobs and the city to continue to function smoothly.
yeah, I honestly, when I read this, I thought it was more about, micromanaging a little bit because I thought we were doing that. But no, I see where you're getting. Yours is just making sure that they're transparent when they're doing, either thinking of terminating somebody to where we get the paperwork and we're able to see that all the procedures were followed, is what you're looking for.
I
Okay.
think that that's something that
Yeah.
we can do without doing a charter amendment. I mean, asking for documentation, that should be something easy. And I do think that you're coming from a good place with this. I think that it's truly coming from a place of protection. But I do see where if you are looking to get council approval or denial or whatever it may be for the termination of an employee, that's bringing politics into someone's livelihood and someone's career, and it could go sideways. And you need to also take into consideration that a charter amendment is not just for this council, but for all future councils. And so things could get, while the intention may be good and from a good place, it could get political and it could get ugly. And I thank everybody who is in this room right now for being here and for doing such an amazing job. And I don't want them to ever have to worry about any politics from the dais.
I agree. How do we make sure that we as council, in order to make the city function, how do we ensure that the policies and procedures in order to make somebody resign are being followed? How do we ensure that that's happening?
I think with my suggestion, and that's by creating a policy for an evaluation of your city manager at the end of the year. That's the
It's
best.
done.
No,
And
we don't have one. We don't have a real, true direction. We have, in the 3 years that I've been here, we've never filled out such an evaluation form from the council towards our city manager, really.
You want the council to tell you how the policies and procedures are being followed?
No.
Because that's her concern. The concern is not the city manager and how we think he's doing his job. The concern boils to our policies and procedures which the council is, per the charter, responsible to enforce. Are those being properly processed when there's an officer of the city terminated? That's all it is. It's not saying yes or no, you're fired, you're not fired. I'm not going to put Perez on the spot, but I don't know if he necessarily feels like his job is politicized. Maybe he feels a little more protected because he knows there will be a process if he gets fired. And at the current state, I think it's pretty relevant. If there is someone just said, well, we can go in there and look. Let me tell you, as somebody who did that, it's not that easy. It was a process, and during it, I had to call legal even after there was an email sent that saying we could see it, because there was a fear. There was a fear of, oh my God, am I allowed to do this? So I think not to micromanage, because again, that's not what it's about. They can bring anybody to us, that's an official, and say, we're not happy with them, they're not doing their job, they're not, fit for Kyle. Here's the documentation that we have. And then we say, oh, great. There should be no real reason why we would say no if we trust
So
our.
you just hit on something. Here's the documentation. That's great. why are we even saying that's great? I mean, we should just look at the documentation, everything was filed, that's it. We shouldn't even have an opinion on it, because if it was filed and all the procedures were done, we're good. But if you're adding an opinion to it, now that's where it gets a little tricky. That's what I'm worried about, is the opinion part of it, is going back and telling, you know what, I don't feel like you did it all. And even if it's done right, I guess I'm worried that we're gonna get a council member up here that says, you know what, I don't care for the city manager, I don't care for my assistant city managers, and I'm gonna make it hard for them to terminate someone. And that's what my concern is. You know, I mean, even if somebody that's a bad character, and now we've got a council member that allies with that one person, and you know what, don't worry about being terminated, because you're not gonna be terminated.
But you would have to get 4 someones to do that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a vote of 4. There's not one person on here.
I completely agree with Mayor Pro Tem on that, so that's,
Yeah.
there's no
That's-
scenario where flipping it and requiring council confirmation of dismissal depoliticizes the situation. It just changes the political dynamics, and it puts staff members in a position where they can go around their city manager in order to gain backing from the city council, in order to prevent their termination and can create a even worse workplace. So we have a history of this happening. So it just depends on how far back you look in the history of the city of Kyle. For example, did you know that the last Charter Review Commission came forward and they made a recommendation to the council to remove the one person who has that dismissal confirmation, and the city council voted to take it to the voters to take the finance director off. So going the exact opposite direction. And it was a split vote at the charters, like 51 to 49. It's the only charter amendment that didn't pass. So there was some protection that was still given, but you have to think, like, why did the council want to do that at that point in time? Certainly it didn't have anything to do with the finance director, but it did have to do with the idea of council being way, way too involved in the management of personnel.
So how do you,
That's true.
what is your suggestion for following the policies and procedures?
So,
That you
can I
yourself,
finish? Because I hadn't, you got to cut in, I'm sorry. So the way I could back something like this up, if there wasn't the opinion at the end, if we put this in place, I would be good, but the opinion has to come from the 7, not from individuals. But really, even then, the opinion from the 7 is only to look that if there was an error in procedure, that'd be the only way we could give opinion. But if somebody's terminated and they follow all the procedures, then no opinion from us. That's the way I can get behind something like this.
so maybe like a checklist.
Okay,
Yeah,
yes.
checklist. I would be
Give
okay with
council-
checklists, yeah.
Give council documentation.
Yeah.
We don't have an opinion.
Yeah.
But show me
Show me
that
the-
everything was
Was
filed.
followed.
And then
Maybe we can
You
even
did
leave
your
the name
job.
off. And we don't know the name
Yeah.
or the information, we
And
just
see,
see.
something like that, I can get behind. I just worry about the politics up there and getting in the way. That kind of scares me sometimes when we're looking at employees and chain of command. I guess even though I never was in the military, I've researched a lot of military history, and I look at the chain of command, and I've seen the breakdowns when you don't have that chain of command.
Well, according to Mayor Mitchell, it's happening right now. And it's happened in the past. And we don't even have that charter amendment.
Charter amendment, yeah, so, but that's the way I could get behind it, as long as there's an opinion behind it.
Okay, to the employees out there, please don't take it that we're trying to micromanage you, because that's kind of what it's starting to sound up here. We have to trust the city manager, whoever it is, or whoever's on time, to do their job, and we stay out of it. It's a chain of command, you're right, but we have to rely on the city manager to make the best decisions for his employees or her employees and stay with that. We are elected officials. We do not work for the city. We represent the city. We represent the citizens. But I do not work for the city. I've told you guys that many times. We don't. Let them do their jobs. If they feel that this person is not up to par according to the gold standard or whatever it is, or maybe they're having issues, we don't know. Maybe they are having issues with the employee, or they're doing a great job and they get promoted, or they just decide to move on. That is their responsibility, not ours. And if somebody leaves, or somebody retires, or if somebody all of a sudden gets fired, there's got to be a reason for it, and I have to trust the chain of command to make that decision based upon the policies and what's best for the city, and I have to leave it up to them. We are here to guide the city in recommendations and follow the charter rules and all that. With all this right here, it would get political, because it'd be saying like, okay, this person we ended up firing. Okay, well, I want to know why you did so. That's none of our concern. That has to do with the city themselves feeling that that person was qualified and got a promotion or is not a good fit. Who am I to tell them to keep that person on board when I don't work for them and I'm not there every single day seeing what they do? We have to respect these people that are out there. They are hardworking individuals that work for the city. And for us to come up here and start acting like we're micromanaging and I want to know why that person's gone is a total disrespect to them. We have great people that work for this city. And it seems like we would just want to have a little input of like why this person's good or why this person's bad. It's none of our concern. It is theirs. They are running the city. They come to us for suggestions. They come to us for decisions to be made. But let them do their jobs. Be respectful and let them to do their jobs. That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay, can we maybe consider leave the charter as it is, but then at the end of it say, provide documentation of the policies and procedures followed for the dismissal of directors and assistant city managers?
I think we should be able to do that without changing the charter.
It won't, no, because otherwise it's not gonna happen.
Can we add that language without,
It will have to be amendment of the charter.
no, but we still have to take it to the voters to amend that language?
Yes, that's it. So may I make a motion to change the city charter, section 4.03, section 8 to say, appoint, supervise, and remove the city manager and confirm dismissal of the director of finance and provide documentation of the policies and procedures followed for the dismissal of directors and assistant city managers and officers.
Yeah, second.
Achieved.
Motion by Councilmember Parsley, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale. Can you please read that again one more time?
Yes, appoint, supervise, and remove the city manager and confirm its dismissal of director of finance and provide documentation of the policies and procedures followed for the dismissal of directors and assistant city managers, and chief officers. That will be the chief building official and chief of police.
Well, I have legal questions about that. So, I mean, there's lots of questions. So I don't know what provide documentation means. So are you wanting personnel issues to be provided and disclosed to the council members?
Show me that they were followed.
Yeah, but you said provide documentation.
Yes,
So that
that-
is, you want to know exactly what happened and all the details of a dismissal.
And that you follow the procedures to make that dismissal, yes.
So can I ask Sandra, is there something in the employee's file? I mean, I can't imagine that you guys terminate somebody and don't document it. So if there's something like that we could receive and just review?
So I do want to point out that our personnel policy does state that we're at-will employer, so we might have to change that to we can either terminate for at-will, or we can terminate for breaking up personnel policy. So it just depends on what the situation is.
Is the at-will, is that a law for the state of Texas?
We are at will in the state of Texas, but the employer can choose, okay, I only want to be able to dismiss if it goes through progressive disciplinary action. But we choose to have the right to just do at will.
Yeah, my concern with at will is when you fire somebody at will and there's previous actions of somebody else that did the same thing and they weren't fired, but somebody else was. My concern is always when you create policies, you create limits for yourself, ultimately. So you create a cause for discrimination. And so I really don't like the idea of firing for at will. Not that you don't have that right, and not that it's not there. I just feel like it's a huge cause for maybe a lawsuit. And I know some people on the council don't feel like it's our responsibility, and they don't feel like, we're the ones that are in charge of the policies and procedures. But I will tell you, at the end of the day, when the city gets sued, it is not gonna go to Sandra. It is gonna have either a city manager, or it's gonna have city council on there. So regardless of how much you don't wanna be involved in the policies and procedures, it's gonna be your name on that lawsuit.
If you're directing it to me,
I'm directing it to whoever feels
okay.
that way.
It seems like it's directed to me, but my thing is this, is you have to give the city their legal, their authority.
We have, and look where
Okay,
we're at.
and it's like, okay, well, we're talking about employees here. We're saying if there's somebody that's maybe not following or doing their job, that the city cannot dismiss them unless they get the information to the council.
No, they just have to document it.
Okay, and I'm
That's it.
sure it's done. That's why she says that.
So,
They
okay.
they could let somebody go,
Perfect.
but there is a policy that says that, okay, you get a verbal warning, or you get a talking to, you get a verbal, and I'm sure you're gonna get, I'm sure the city has a 3-strike or a 4-strike or whatever it is.
They do not. I've looked at files. They do not. What you're saying is correct. It should be like that, but that's not how it always goes.
Okay.
Yeah, but
But then
that's something to be addressed.
But that's.
That is, I think that's a whole
policies.
separate
But
issue too, yeah.
that's addressed yeah, exactly. And that's where whoever is in charge, whether it's HR, or whether it's a city manager, or whoever it is, they design that policy for their team. And they bring it, and if they want to bring it to council and say, this is what we want to propose, then that's what they do. But we have to let them do their job on that.
Just to follow up on some of the discussions going on is that, we're talking about directors, but if we're going to be fair across the board, that would go across to all the employees. I mean, why just directors? Why just limiting there? I mean, we have to, if we're actually going to be fair, they'd be all employees, making sure all procedures, everything was followed. But now I hate to say it, we're kind of micromanaging there. So I just don't want to exclude, people always forget about those boots on the ground, the blue collar guys that work for us. And if we're going to include a segment of our city to a different policy, then we should hold those people in that policy as well. Because if we're going to change it for them, we should change it for all of them. And it's just me advocating for the blue collar, because that's what my background was. So definitely.
I think the difference is also in the terminology. So officials, we're officials, directors are officials, sworn police officers are officials. So I would assume that's how it gets extended instead of employees. Now she can amend it to say that, but I think overall, when you look at the terminology in I know for one, the ethics ordinance, it labels officials in a very specific way.
Mayor?
Do we want to ask the staff, the city manager, what? Barbara?
Well, I just want to bring up that you have a city manager form of government. That is what your charter has set up as far as who is responsible for the employees. You start taking things away from that and you start diluting that form of government and making it more a strong city council form of government rather than a city manager form of government. There are ways that you can structure in the assignments that you give your city manager that, as Mayor Pro Tem has mentioned, potentially that there are steps to be, considered in firing any of these individuals. But you are basically changing with some of these things that you are considering and talking about the underlying structure of what you have as a city presently, in taking the powers away from the city manager.
So I thought, and maybe I could be incorrect, I thought it was a city manager / city council led city. And additionally, if you look at the employee part of it, I can understand what you're saying. Nobody is talking about directing employees. They are only talking about the policies and procedures.
Well, I just would say, I think that putting this in the charter is very much the wrong place. I mean, this is a policy issue. Trying to take this to the voters is going to be confusing to them nonetheless. But, well, we've discussed it. Would y'all like to hear from staff, whether anyone from staff would support this proposal?
If we have any staff members that would like to talk, that would be wonderful.
I don't know if we should put them on the spot like that.
Well, the city manager has to respond to this, unfortunately. It's the way I see it, because this directly impacts the city manager in terms of his ability to administer his role.
Sure, Mayor, Council, for the record, Jerry Hendrix, acting city manager. And I understand where you guys are coming from, and I share your concerns. I can tell you that firing an individual, even if it's very obvious that that's what needs to happen, is probably one of the hardest things we do as administrators. For me personally, it's really hard. But as hard as it is to make that administrative decision, if the council is going to be reviewing that and signing off on it, then it comes in an even harder political decision, because then you have to start counting votes. And I've only been the city manager for a few weeks, but I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but if you don't trust the city manager to be able to shepherd those types of decisions, then that's a conversation you need to have with the city manager, because that's the individual that you direct and supervise.
May I ask if Perez is interested in telling us? Never mind, you don't have to. He's the one person that's I don't want to say protected, but he's the one person whose job comes to us for, finalization. And, in the event he does feel like it's a lot, we could maybe change that back even. It's just, I'm interested to know what he feels like.
So this charter amendment that you're referring to actually happened before I joined the city of Kyle, or about the same time. But maybe it's different for a different director of finance that may be here in the future. But for me personally, I do not consider the city charter language in my day-to-day job responsibility, or delegating that job responsibility, or performing my job responsibilities. It has never, ever entered my mind to challenge the city manager or the chain of command. I have always followed that. So for me personally, it does not make any difference. And if and when that day comes, I hope it doesn't, but if and when that day comes that I am no longer wanted here, I'll be the first one to say, you know what, I'm done. I'm not going to force myself within an organization that I'm no longer wanted. That's the bottom line, is how I feel. But that specific language, for me personally, has not made any difference in my performance of my duties.
Mayor, if I could add. Amber Lewis, Assistant City Manager, for the record. I just want to add that if policies and procedures aren't followed, there is an appeal process for that employee. So they can exercise their rights under that process and challenge that decision. And it elevates up to the city manager. So there already is a relief valve if things aren't being followed properly.
Roll call vote.
Rizzo,
No.
Flores Kale,
Yes.
Ellison is absent. Parsley,
Yes.
Bradshaw,
Nay.
Tobias,
Nay.
Mitchell.
Nay. All right, motion fails 4-2. 2-4.
I just wanted to follow out with, Councilmember Parsley. I know where you were going with this. I think your heart's in a great place. And, I really commend you for looking after staff. I just thought it was a little overreaching, but thank you for bringing this forward anyway. Discussion was great, and I commend you for trying to look after the staff. Thank you.
All right, we're ready to start a budget. Y'all wanna, we've been at it for an hour. I know there's some I already have to go to the bathroom. I've been sucking down these drinks, but we'll get it started. Next up, agenda item number 4, presentation and discussion on city manager's proposed budget for fiscal year 2022, 2023, totaling approximately $206 million for all city funds, including proposed ad valorem tax rate, no increase in water service rates, no increase in wastewater service rates, no increase in storm drainage fees, 2.49% increase in solid waste service charges, trash collection per contract terms with Texas Disposal Systems, addition of two new fees, no increase in all other fees and charges, and the addition of 51 new positions for a total of 356 full-time equivalent positions. I've never seen that number be so big while not increasing our fees, so that's pretty interesting. Take it away, Mr. Hendrix.
Mayor, Council, once again, for the record, Jerry Hendrix, acting city manager. It's my pleasure to bring to you my first ever city budget.
Congratulations.
Biggest one ever for the city of Kyle. I want to thank council for all their input. I want to thank staff for their hard work in putting this together and being very thoughtful about it, and particularly our finance department for the long hours that they put in helping us to develop that. There's nothing in this presentation that you haven't seen already, and as our department heads presented their wish list at a previous workshop, what you'll see is where we've gone through and prioritized those needs and balanced those with the assets that we have on hand to be able to fund those needs. And we're pretty proud of what we put together, and we have the department heads here to be able to ask and respond to questions that you might have as we go through. So just a brief outline of what we're going to discuss this evening is we're going to review the city council priorities for your budget, overview of the proposed budget for all city funds, and primarily focusing on the highlights and significant changes. We're going to show you 51 new positions. That is a lot because there was only 100 people here when I started 16 years ago. The new equipment that we've identified, and our CIP spending summary by funding source. The budgets also go into our budget summary and highlights for our major operating funds. We have the 4 major ones, which are our general fund, our water and wastewater utilities, and our storm drainage utilities. These are 4 of 44 total funds that we have. So all this information is detailed in your backup and in your packets that you have in front of you. We're just going to be hitting the highlights. We'll go into significant changes in the budget by city department. We'll highlight our capital improvement program. We'll review with you our current debt position and all of our other city funds, and then talk about next steps and key dates. As we go through this, I'm not going to read slides to you.
Thank you.
But I'll present those slides to you. I might point out some highlights and things that I think are important. Give you a few moments to just kind of read the slides yourself, and if you have any questions, we'll respond to those. If you don't have any questions, we'll move on to the next slide. So the budget you're going to see in front of you is aligned with your council priorities. That's been identified in the previous planning retreat and budget work session number 1. We're focusing on street and roadway improvements, our parks and trail system, our right-of-way mowing, trash pickup, and beautification of the city, beautification of our high-profile corridors in the city, our downtown mixed-use buildings and park improvements, our uptown Central Park, cultural trails, and Heroes Memorial Park, and Public Safety Center. These are things that we focused on in the development of this budget. There is no reduction in city services, and with the addition of the 51 employees and all the equipment, we're planning on further improving our city services and our response to the public. We don't have our property tax rate yet, but this budget was designed to minimize any tax rate increase that our citizens would experience. The priority was to minimize rate increases in water and wastewater, and you can see that we are proposing no rate increase this year for either of those services. It was a priority to minimize rate increase for storm drainage fees and other various city services. The only fee that's being increased is the solid waste fee, which is something we're contractually obligated to do for that outsourced service. The investments that we're making in new positions, equipment, and infrastructure are very strategic and prioritized according to our view of what your priorities are. And we've also added investment in our city workforce to improve retention, recruitment of the type of talent that we want to have, and pay parity to be able to make sure that the talent that we do have is being appropriately compensated for the jobs that they do. The next slide is just a summary for the total proposed budget, which is 206 million in round numbers, right, Professor?
That's correct.
You can see the biggest chunk is the green part of the disc, which is our CIP. This doesn't include ARWA, which is 61% and $123 million in change. And the next biggest fund is a general fund, and then you can see water utility, wastewater, our debt service, and our storm drainage fee.
Did you say that does not include ARWA yet?
Yes,
When does that come into play?
Professor.
So the Alliance partnership, the way it's set up, is they have their own CIP program. They issue their own debt. Their debt, our portion of their debt is not reflected on our books. So that's why we're showing that the CIP expenditures that you see in the proposed budget, it is not inclusive of our projects or Alliance projects. We pay them on a monthly basis through our operating budget. So when you see the water utility budget expenses for public works, we will show you there are line items for Alliance regional payments to them for debt service, for operating costs, for capital CIP costs.
Okay, so we will see that.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
So the highlights of our fiscal year budget proposal for 2022 and 23, once again, it's a $206 million total proposed budget, including all city funds, $123.4 million in planned CIP spending, 51 new positions, bringing our total to 356 total full-time positions. We don't have our proposed property tax rate yet. We're still waiting on information from the county. No increase in our water, our wastewater, our storm drain funds. The 2.49% increase that we're contractually bound to TDS for our solid waste services. No increase in any other fees or charges for any city services. But we do have a new fee added by our engineering services for floodplain review.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I thought the taxes were certified this week. Is that incorrect? I thought it was Monday, the 25th.
The certified tax valuations were delivered.
Okay,
But not the tax rate calculations.
gotcha. Do we know when that's gonna be?
No, in Hays County, the way that works is the Hays County tax assessor certifies the tax rate collections. So all of the taxing jurisdictions have to get in line to get theirs done. And we try to get in line as early as possible, so we should be 1 or 2 in line.
Okay, thank you.
Continuing with our highlights, we have just under 92 million dedicated for street maintenance, repairs and reconstruction. 3.5 million of that is in our operation and maintenance budget. The remainder, which is just over 88 million, is in our CIP budget. 8 million is provided for improvements in our parks and trails system. 5.7 million is dedicated for economic development and revitalization programs in downtown Kyle. 7.6 million for water system utility improvements, 8.9 million for wastewater improvements, 1.2 million for our storm drain improvements, 2.4 million for our citywide beautification, 1.6 million for economic development incentives, and 13.8 million included for our city's debt service.
Jerry, does the park portion of this cover maybe future parks, or is that already all dedicated? Is there a reserve there for maybe design of a new park?
I do not believe there's any money in there currently for design of a new park.
Okay.
It doesn't mean we can't do that if that's council's wish.
I definitely would like to see at least 500,000 go towards design of a new park. Reason is there is a possibility of redesigning the park. Instead of doing a charter amendment throughout the year, I'd love to have those dollars there ready to go in case we do go forward with another park.
So we'll explore that and bring it back at our next workshop.
Sounds good. Thank you, Jerry.
And are we gonna talk more about this, the storm drainage improvements? Because
Yeah.
1.2 million is not very much.
Yeah, we have a slide for that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a quick question. So all of these are just CIP, correct?
These are the highlights. The stuff that we just went through is, a lot of it's CIP, some of it's in operation and maintenance.
Okay, because the 5.7 million dedicated for economic development and revitalization improvements downtown?
Yeah, that's
It says
CIP.
IPA, okay.
Continuing with our highlights, I just leave this slide in front of you. It's kind of getting down to the lower end. If you have any questions about that slide, we can respond to those. And the final slide for our highlights, I'll point out to you the $302,000 for the first year of our civil service employees, our police officers, in the meet and confer agreement that will be coming to you for approval at a later council meeting. And then the $302,000 for civil service and $788,000, our 14.4 increase over 3 years. That's also part of our meet and confer. And then $555,000 for an 8.5 general wage increase for all of our non-civil service employees to help bring them up on par with some of our neighbors in our competition, as well as $300,000 for pay parity for non-civil service employees to make sure that they're being paid a competitive wage for the job that they do for us. Then $150,000 for downtown revitalization and architectural services. Any questions over the highlights?
Ooh, I would, if it just, kind of wishful thinking, I'd like to see more than 50,000 for Arts in Public Places program. I know we have our Arts Commission and it's pretty new. Even if we could just increase that by 10 or 25, you know, something small, I'd like to see, even if it's just buying paint for artists to come paint, that'd be great.
Sure.
I had a question on the brand ambassador services. Are we still utilizing that one person that
Kyle
we?
Park?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
For how long do we have him as a contract?
It's an annual contract.
Okay.
And this renews the contract for another year.
I would figured when we voted on this last year that we would see more of this person. I've only seen like 2 videos. I don't know if he's done any other things around the city that promoted.
Wasn't there supposed to be a public performance too in that contract? Yeah.
Yes, please.
So the Kyle Park contract for the brand ambassador, it expires in September. This is mostly on here to see if y'all are interested in renewing that contract. He has produced approximately one every month video, and we have several coming out very soon, mostly about Kyle Parks and things like that. Kyle Park on Kyle Parks. But a lot of this stuff has been posting on National Pie Day. He was our pirate treasure hunt person for National Pie Day in March, not the January one. And then just mostly, it doesn't include actual playing of shows, but it does include basically appearances at festivals and events sometimes. The Kyle Park playing at the Pie in the Sky Festival this year is a different contract, though, just so y'all understand that.
Obviously, we haven't done a very good job of getting those performance measures out to you regarding that function, and we'll prepare a report and get it to you.
Yeah, that's why, because not to take away from the band that we'll be playing at the Pie in the Sky, which I'm excited about there. But I was very surprised that when we have these festivals that he is not performing. Instead of like that, I was figuring that would be part of the contract whenever we had something that was going on, whether it was the 4th of July. I was kind of thinking that maybe he would do some kind of performance at
Just the
whatever.
current one doesn't include that. This is the contract I inherited.
This is just a contract for him
Yeah.
to do videos and promote the
Essentially
city and that's it.
promotion videos and like ambassadorship for the city, so
Okay.
using his own personal channel.
Okay.
Do that.
All right.
And we'll get that report to you.
Okay.
And we'll also include our plans for next year. Building a brand is something that you work towards and build upon. So it usually takes 2 to 3 years or more to really build that and cement it in.
Okay.
But we obviously need to get him out in front of more people.
Okay.
Yeah, I know he was a part of our Veterans Day Parade as well, because he asked me to move my float so he could get by. But anyway, yeah, definitely was there. But no, I've actually seen him doing some of the videos and stuff, so I'm excited to see where we can go with that. But yeah, I think I'm in line with Councilmember Tobias. I'd love to see him even do a song or two at some of our events, and I'm not asking for a full performance, but just to have him do a song or two somewhere and just, just a plug and play or something like that. Be
Yes,
great.
Market days this past summer would maybe have been an idea, I'm sorry. I was, yeah.
So in the current contract, that wasn't a part of it when it was written, but whenever the contract ends on September 30th, 2022, we can revisit what we would actually like to see in that contract. So if y'all would like to see performances as a part of that, we can bring that to the table with Kyle Park and his management team.
Okay, thank you.
Although I'm not sure he'd want to perform at 103 degrees, so maybe we could do it in the beginning or the end. I mean, the summer's nice, but.
I witnessed him doing a photo shoot and videotaping around the city, and it was pretty hot outside. He was wearing long jeans
His cowboy hat.
and a vest down, sweater, and a hat. So he's pretty
The
steady guy.
videos I've seen are actually pretty good. He's a pretty good pitch man for
I
the
agree.
city. I was super skeptical of this contract the first time. I still am, so I actually want to see those metrics as well. But the videos I saw I was like, all right, he's doing right by us there. That's pretty good.
Moving on, next we're going to go over real briefly our 51 new positions. I'm just going to leave this slide up and let you review it. I'll point out some really key new positions as we go through. On here, I think the most important one is our Assistant City Engineer. Leon's used the word succession planning, but Leon's not going anywhere anytime soon.
No.
But this is to help with the scope of supervision and managing projects that we see more and more. Leon, how many projects are you managing right now? Over 30 projects, and these are very complicated, highly technical projects. So this is a very important position for our engineering department.
Can I say that I would like to see, with Kyle's Parks and Trails getting really big, I would like to see more than 3 employees added. It's a really difficult job. It's hot. The summertime's tough, and they're the ones in charge of like the parks, and especially during Christmas, we want to make sure we have enough staff. So, that's okay.
Yeah,
Parks
that's what
and
I was
Recreation.
asking.
So Parks and Recreation looks like they want to do like park maintenance. So with what we have coming to Kyle, I think it's really important that we start staffing it a little bit more
is that-
now, so we don't have to do it all. I don't want to be like the police department and try to play catch-up. Our parks are supposed to be huge. We have this vibe coming. I would love to see more support for that department.
Okay. The other position on this first page I want to point out is our customer service and billing manager. This is something proposed by our director of finance to tie together our court staff and our utility billing staff, provide a single point of leadership for both those groups, and to instill some cross-training that we've been wanting to do for a couple of years to help alleviate the needs for staffing when we have people going on vacation, we have people getting sick, and to really help shore up those two functions.
So I guess that's a concern of mine too, the building inspection. We have so much economic development and growth in Kyle. It really worries me that we don't have enough people. I know we third party it out too, but my concern for that is those people, as good as they may be, may not know all the ordinances in the city of Kyle. And if Kyle continues to grow the way it has, to get some full-time, more than one at least, part-time or full-time people in there, I think that would bring a real relief to the builders.
Can I share something? I had lunch at the Chamber Luncheon this past Tuesday, and one of the new businesses came in, gave us props as a city on how fast and how efficient our building manager, she says it's faster than anywhere else she's built. So we're doing pretty
Well,
good.
that worries me too.
Yeah.
I worry on both sides. I want to make sure we're doing it right.
No, they're actually doing a really good job. I thought that might give you some comfort that they're.
No,
they're-
that's
they're
good to
really
know,
quick.
yes.
And
Yeah, definitely.
we're doing
really
a
quick.
very good job of keeping up with our inspections at the moment, and that's actually a pass-through.
Well, My thinking here is to let staff explain their positions, their thinking behind it, and then we're kind of tabulating, and at the end, we'll have a chance to go.
Okay.
Because everybody's got their things that they want to, maneuver, but we need to try to hear, from staff if we can.
Right. Okay. Moving on to the next page, I'll leave this up for you guys to look at. We are adding 3 new park maintenance technicians to add to our existing staff. This is one of the big problems we have with our parks and our folks that are on the ground out and doing the frontline work is when somebody gets sick, somebody goes on vacation, something like that, it leaves a big hole. So the positions that we're adding are going to take the pressure off of people not being able to take vacation and be sick. And that's kind of our goal with this budget. We weren't able to create whole new crews, but we're able to create pressure valves for people to be able to take their time off and be sick and not create holes in our organization. Also on this slide, you'll see the implementation of our meet and confer agreement, adding commanders and corporals to our police department to reduce the span of control we're currently experiencing in the command structure. Within the police department, also adding 6 new police officers, 4 corporals and 2 commanders, an animal control officer, a detective, and a code enforcement technician. Our code enforcement department is really being tasked not only for the things that they usually do, but we're leaning on them heavily also to help us with our beautification and reaching out to customers, working with our residents and our businesses for voluntary compliance, and then only working towards citations and court actions as needed. I think they're doing a really good job. I think as we get bigger, they need some help. And the same thing with our animal control department. They need at least one additional person to help with that function as well. Moving on to the next slide, there's a couple more police department positions in there. And I'll let you guys look at that and let me know if you have any questions.
You ready for questions on this?
And I just point out that the total for new positions right now is 51, and that's just over $3,760,000. Questions?
Yeah, first, my first question will be for the, what do you call it? I don't want to get this up. Is the code enforcement technician. I know you're saying we need it for the beautification, but I'm just not really feeling that position. One reason is I think the more code officers we get in, the more heavy-handed we are as a city, and I'm not interested in being heavy-handed. I'd love to see that position go away and instead have a neighborhood services supervisor for animal control that could actually work both divisions, the animal control and also help out with the code enforcement. I'm just not really interested in putting another full-time code enforcement technician right now for, compliance.
How many do we have?
2.
We've got 2. But-
2?
2 for the entire city.
Yeah.
How many square miles is the city of Kyle? Does anybody know?
About 30.
So like 30-ish, right? That 2
Yep.
is not a lot.
No.
I mean, I think if we had 4, that would still be not a lot. I think we're at the point where we're just playing catch-up, and there will come a time that we don't have to add to these kind of departments. I've had real concerns over code enforcements for the last, 2 or 3 months. There's no way I would be comfortable cutting that position that's already short. 2 people, we just talked about taking vacation and sick time.
So if someone takes a vacation with code, grass doesn't get penalized, something like that. You know what I mean? Somebody with a tall yard. But what I'm looking at is the animal control part is making sure, we've got 2 right now. If somebody gets sick, then or somebody takes a vacation, you've got 1, and you might not even have someone on staff that day. So now you're looking at a vicious dog situation or something like that. So that's where I'm more interested in filling is that need right there, because that's a safety issue for people. I think that's where
Do we have a code enforcement here? Because I'm going to tell you right now, I don't believe it's all about grass. I think code enforcement is businesses as well.
Right.
Is that correct?
And our code enforcement is really good, and it's my direction to them to pursue voluntary compliance. So the heavy-handed part shouldn't be happening. But we're also adding an animal control officer to help with that function as well.
Yeah, I feel like we need both. Like, don't let me take away from the other. But what I'm saying is, I don't want to take away from an already short staff to give to another department that I feel is also short-staffed, because I think that's going to make it tough. The more I learn about what it is that code enforcement does, the more I feel like there's no way we can cut that. I wish it was just grass.
Well,
but
it's grass, it's compliance with signs, things like that. But really, when you're talking about safety issues, I'm thinking about, vicious dog situation, something like that, livestock on the road, making sure we have somebody on staff at that time to make sure they can come out and handle that situation. Right now, we've got 2 people in that department. We're looking at third, but really, we need a supervisor in that department. We need a supervisor over the code enforcement and the animal control, and we don't have that. That's what I'm proposing, is making that supervisor. That supervisor position will be able to assist with code and with animals.
Right.
So
I'm going to ask Chief Barnett to come and talk about that, because once again, we're adding 2 corporals and 4 corporals and 2 commanders to help reduce span of control that can add that supervision you're looking for. But I'll let Chief talk about that, if that's all right.
And that's okay, but I'm not interested in taking boots from patrol to come supervise something like that, because that's a totally different department, and their safety's on the streets. What they're over is different than what is this function of the city works on.
Mayor and council, just as a process check, not because my position is protected by the city charter.
Amen on that, Chris.
But,
Amen.
But to help out our acting city manager, this is his first budget. The action today before you is for the city manager to roll out his proposed budget per the city charter. Then council as a body at the next meeting, which would be August 16th, I believe, that's when you make amendments to the city manager's proposed budget. So you propose a motion, you don't want a code enforcement officer or what have you, then the council votes, and then we take that vote back and make the amendments to the budget, city manager's proposed budget. So the exercise today is basically have the city manager roll out the proposed budget for next fiscal year, then y'all deliberate on that in the next meeting and take actual vote on specific items that you would like to amend to the budget.
Thank you. In other words, let's let them get through the presentation, guys, and then we have plenty of time to play with the numbers, okay? And then how we feel that this and that, the other, I think this position doesn't need to be there. But again, I would ask the chief, what is it that you need versus what I want, kind of thing. So let's let them finish.
Well, I'm done with the positions unless there's
Can
any
can I ask a question?
Yeah, I've been a part of 3 budgets, and
okay.
we've been able to ask questions and make recommendations
I'm just
through all
trying
3
to
budgets.
understand. I only see one animal control officer, and I know they're busy, and I know Plum Creek is calling animal control all the time, because they call me to call animal control. Is just one position enough? Chief, what are your thoughts?
Thank you. For the record, Jeff Barnett, Chief of Police. So in our original budget proposal from a couple of months ago, we had proposed a team approach that would include a neighborhood services supervisor that would supervise and provide civilian support and leadership to animal control and to code enforcement. That's what that position, and I believe Mayor Pro Tem and council members may have referenced that position. To answer the direct question of, do we need more animal control officers? Absolutely. I would say both divisions are at their max capacity. The animal control issue probably presents itself more from an emergency standpoint, because we do only have 2 animal control officers, and when one is on vacation or out of town or in training or wherever, then they're not on the street. And we hear more aggressively from citizens who are upset that there's not an on-duty animal control officer on that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because the other one worked Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and whatnot. The code enforcement complaints are typically less emergent, but nonetheless, they do match and go along with the city's plan for the beautification program. So it just depends on the emphasis and the volume of work that you want both to do, and then the amount of direct supervision that you want them to have. The code enforcement officers, I would, again, both of those divisions are at max capacity. They're willing to do whatever you as city leadership and their supervisors want them to do based on priority, but there's only so many hours in a day for that to go around. If we don't add to one or the other, we just need to be able to answer the question to the citizens. Correct, there's not an animal control officer on today because they're on vacation or they're out sick, and the other one has already worked their 40 hours this week. Same particularly goes with code enforcement, that we can only manage so many projects and handle so many cases at one time, so we get done with what we're given.
And then my next question, can one do the other's job?
No.
Okay, so it will have to be
In
one and
general
one.
terms, you generally do not combine the two. They're both specialists in their field, and they have laws and certain training and certifications. Is it possible? Absolutely. Is it the common practice? And would that help their caseload much? No.
No.
The supervisor would help provide day-to-day guidance. They currently report to a police sergeant who has multiple employees that report to him from a wide variety of assignments. That particular sergeant tends to have to be an expert as a supervisor to animal control, to code enforcement, to the mental health officer, to the fleet management, the quartermaster, and others. So his span of control is wide, and his depth of knowledge and expectations are pretty broad as well. That's why we had proposed initially the neighborhood services supervisor, which would be a civilian position. So our original approach is a team approach. However, whatever we're given, we'll do the best with our staff members that we have.
And that supervisor's come back, this is the second year for an ask for a supervisor.
Any other questions or comments on positions? The next slide reviews the new equipment that we're proposing by department and by fund. I just let you look at that slide for a minute. The total comes to $1.364 million in new equipment proposed out of several different funds. You can respond to any questions you might have. Hearing none. Moving on to our capital improvement spending plan. Once again, this slide summarizes that plan by fund. And you can see the total for our CIP for the next year is proposed to be just over $123 million. The biggest part of that is the $70 million that you'll see from the 2022 proposed road bond election. So let you look at that for a few minutes if you have any, for a while. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to respond.
So the 2015 GO road bonds, 250, that's what's left from that?
Our engineering department, council member, is wrapping up Lehman Road contract.
Yes, sir.
Even though work has been completed, this is the final payout.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on our CIP spending plan? So next up, we'll be doing our budget summary and highlights for our general fund departments. I'll let Pervez review with you the tax information at the beginning of this part.
So we received the certified taxable assessed valuation for the city of Kyle. And what you have before you is the total taxable assessed valuation. The certified is almost $5 billion. And there's a little asterisk next to the number. And basically, this number excludes assessed valuations within our three TERS that we have, TERS 1, TERS 2, and TERS 3. So this is just the city of Kyle portion that helps us with the property tax revenues. So as compared to 2021, we had an increase of $1.1 billion in our assessed taxable valuations, which is about 27.43% from the year before. Just as a comparison, the growth within TERS 1, 2, 3 really doesn't have anything at this point. It's basically 1 and 2. In comparison, the growth within those two TERSs was 53.9% from the year before. The average single-family residential home value This is average, so it's $388,506 in 2022. As compared to 21, we had the average single-family residential home was valued at $233,902, an increase of $105,000 or 45%. This next slide refers to our tax rates. However, we do not have the proposed tax rates yet, nor do we have the no new revenue tax rate, which is the effective tax rate, what we used to call effective tax rate, and the voter approval tax rate, what was formerly known as the rollback tax rate. I can only show you our current tax rates, which is 50.82 cents. We should hear back from our tax assessor collector hopefully by next week. So if you live in Kyle, these are the various taxing jurisdictions that show up on your tax bill. Our total tax within City of Kyle is $2.56. The largest portion of the tax on your property tax bill is from the Hayes School District, 53%. Next is City of Kyle, 20%, Hayes County, 14%, and then the rest of the jurisdictions, Austin Community College, ESD 5 and 9, and then the Plum Creek Conservation Districts. Next slide is our property tax rate history. Here I'm sharing with you a 35-year history, and you can see over the years our tax rates have gone up and has come down. The two colors represent, the blue is the M&O portion of the tax rate, and the yellow color is the INS portion. Our highest tax rate was in 1992, which was about 69.26 cents. Our lowest tax rate was in 2008, 27.07 cents. And then in 22, we're at 50.82 cents. How do we compare with other jurisdictions as far as property tax rates are concerned? We're right in the middle of it. Everybody else that we compare ourselves to. On the low end is Dripping Springs, City of Dripping Springs. And the rate there, tax rates is so low is they do not owe any debt. They have financed so far. They've been able to finance with existing cash and current revenues. But what's on the horizon for them, they will have to borrow. They just cannot sustain that. Similarly, Buda is probably also in the same situation, that their tax rates will be impacted with their future capital improvement requirements. And on the extreme end is City of Manor and our own Crosswinds Mud, which is at 90 cents. Our sales tax collection, next slide. We're projecting a 15% increase from the current year's budget, or $2 million. Sales tax has really surprised us, especially in the last 2 years. During COVID, we anticipated sales tax to decline. However, it went in the opposite direction. I have a theory, but I don't know for sure if that is the real reason why we seen an increase in sales tax.
Can we hear it?
Certainly. So my theory is that during COVID, everybody was homebound. So everybody that traveled to Austin or Georgetown or to San Marcos to work and shopped during the day or bought groceries during the day or ran their errands during the day, they spent their money in other jurisdictions. When they were homebound, they were kind of forced to buy within Kyle area. They were also forced to buy online. A lot of online sales happened because of COVID. So we saw an increase in sales tax collections over this time period. So that's basically my theory, but I cannot prove it that that's the reason. But we also have a number of new businesses in town that is growing, and we're adding new businesses every day.
I learned that stores like Target ordered a lot of supplies and clothing during COVID that they did not receive during that time, and so now they're getting a big abundance of it, and they have to discount it because it's so much, and so I agree with your theory.
That helps.
Yeah, I definitely think your theory's dead on, and we're still feeling the effects of that theory, because during that time, people decided that they wanted to stay home and work from home, and we still have that going on in our city. So that allows people during the day, and that's why you see the influx of new restaurants wanting to come to Kyle, because we now have that daytime traffic that will help them justify opening their doors here. So
Yes,
it's
sir.
gonna be great.
All right, moving on, more information about our general fund. The slide in front of you right now shows you the sources of funds that comprise our general fund. You'll see the biggest chunk is our property tax income at just over 16 million, and then our sales tax income right at 15 million. Then you can see the other fees. The next biggest one is development fees. So I'll let you look at that chart for just a bit. I'm going to move on to the next one, and if you have any questions, feel free to stop us.
And for the benefit of our Public Works Director, Mr. Harper Wilder, the largest slice of the pie here is in burnt orange.
Funny, there's no maroon colors in
I was
this.
gonna say, why is it gonna be burnt orange?
It's always
And
been
then-
my goal to see the number one source of funds in the city be sales tax.
I just point out, when I got here 16 years ago, our main sales tax goal was to have more than Buda.
Which we do not. We have more dollars, but not more per person. So they've got us doubled up, but we're catching them,
Yeah.
which is really exciting. And the fact that we're nearly on a one-to-one scale from property tax and sales tax is also very encouraging, because it did not used to be that way at all.
That's correct.
It used to be, we relied almost exclusively on property tax, and within that, it was almost exclusively single-family residential. So like, the residents truly shouldered that burden, so,
It's certainly a much more diversified tax base.
yeah.
So the use of our funds is your next slide. You'll see the police is our biggest department for use of our funds, and that's representative in how we've allocated our budget as well. Transferred out is the next biggest, and that's primarily our CIP projects. And then you can go through and see the rest of the charts and the different pieces. If you have any questions about any one of those, feel free to ask. Okay, general fund budget highlights proposed for our next fiscal year. 49.6 million from our general fund and transfers in for FY 2023. You can go down and read the list. It's everything working all the way down to proposed new equipment and proposed lease vehicles. So if you have any questions, any of that information, we can respond to those for you.
We'll see that, though, in this package that you gave.
Right,
me.
everything is,
Okay.
everything is detailed in your budget package.
Thank you.
Going to, PD, what page is the PD? I'm sorry, I missed. Budget. Parks
We
Rec.
have a slide for all the new PD stuff coming up.
Okay.
We're gonna go
You're gonna
department
go
by
department by department?
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
sounds good, I'll wait for that, thank you.
So going through our major funds, our water utility fund, budget summary and highlights. You can see a pie chart showing the uses of those funds, and 95% of those funds go toward actually providing water service. The rest of it is other fees and charges and miscellaneous. Our uses of those funds, you'll see 54% of those funds go towards acquisition and development of our water supply. The next biggest chunk is 19%, which goes towards our actual water operations. And you can see how the rest of that breaks out. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
Does this include the ARWA or no?
It does not.
Okay. Just want to confirm. Thank you.
It includes the operating costs that we pay for our share to ARWA.
Okay.
Thank you. The water utility fund budget highlights no rate increase for water service, 16.6 million in transfers in, 16.5 million in transfers out. We're utilizing 0.1 million from our fund balance. Did I say that right, Pervez?
That's correct.
And that leaves 7.8 million estimated in our fund balance, and we're using, when we draw down from that, it's for one-time capital expenses, so it's not a reoccurring cost. Out of our water fund, we have 8.75 new positions and $185,000 worth of proposed new equipment. Any questions?
So you're saying there's no water rate increase this time around?
No, we are proposing no rate increases for any service other than trash.
In trash, okay.
And we are proposing one new fund for floodplain review.
Okay, so just trash is gonna be the only one thing that's gonna be
We're
increased?
contractually bound up for that rate.
Oh, with TD, okay, thank you.
This chart shows you a comparison of our water bill compared to our neighbors. And you'll see outside of Southwest Water that we have the highest water rates. And I think that's reflective of our investments in acquisition of water to secure our water for the future and improvements in our water system. Any questions?
One thing to note on this chart is to keep an eye on Buda, how that moves when we show you the next slide on wastewater.
So our wastewater utility fund summary and highlights, you can see once again, 98% of the funds in that go towards actually providing the wastewater service. The use of those funds is split up between CIP transfers, our operations, our water treatment plant operations, and utility billing, so, and debt service. Any questions about this slide? Our utility fund budget highlights, once again, no rate increase for our wastewater service. We have a $1.7 million difference between our transfers in and our transfers out. Once again, it's being made up from withdrawal from our fund balance, which is very healthy, and all those go towards one-time expenses towards capital projects. The total spending for CIP is $8.8 million. We have 4.75 new positions in our wastewater utility and just under $400,000 proposed for new equipment. Here's Pervez's slide showing Kyle right in the middle of the wastewater bills for our neighbors, and Buda properly placed right there at the top.
I do worry about our wastewater and the delay in increasing that rate for the future. That's it. I'll talk more about it later.
Okay, so our storm drainage utility fund summary and highlights is a pretty simple chart. You see the storm drainage fees for commercial account for the majority of that fund, and our residential slightly smaller percentage. And the uses of those funds, operation and maintenance, actually going out in the field and making improvements, CIP transfers, and 20% for administration. Our budget highlights, once again, no increase in that fee, 1.8 million in revenues projected for next year, 1.9 million in expenditures and transfers out. So once again, we're drawing down our fund balance by $100,000 to balance that, to pay for one-time expenses. We have 2.5 new positions budgeted for that fund, and a new leased vehicle for that fund. Any questions? So significant changes coming up. These are our department by department, and I'll hit the highlights on each one of these slides. Any questions, we can bring up the appropriate department head to answer those questions for you. We're just showing you the significant increases and decreases in those funds. And you'll see at the top of these slides, you'll see that the actual budget line giving you actual since 2019, the dollar increase and percent increase that our proposed budget enacts here. So this is the mayor and council item. The proposed budget, we're allocating 7 separate cost centers, one for each council member. So these increases you see will be allocated across the board in divisions of 7. So we've allowed for foods and meals, memberships and dues. You can see all the different things that will be in those cost centers. We've moved P&Z commission travel to different fund, and advertising, the facilitator and renaming the Rebel Road Grant have been removed from this fund.
Now, is this going to change if the committee comes back and thinks that we need more or less?
This is what we're proposing for the budget, and if that committee comes back with a different recommendation, well, if you want it enacted in the next fiscal year, then we'd have to do a budget amendment. If the recommendation comes back before this budget is finalized, council can make motions to add or subtract money.
I have a question about that. So if they come back with a different number, who's going to vote for that? Us on our own amendments?
Well, it's still, ultimately, the council has to decide, but we just can't decide until a recommendation has been made per the charter rules. But they're not the ones who set our pay. In other words, the current way we're compensated is not what the recommendation was. They made a recommendation of the pay that we have plus insurance, and then the council took that away, chose to not have insurance. So they could come back and say, we recommend that you have allowances, for example, and we could say no, or they could recommend an increase in pay, which would require changing the budget, and we could say no or yes, but it's ultimately up to us. But the committee is our way, it's an extra step that we have to go through in order to make that change.
So I had a quick question on the office supplies. Is the office supplies, when it comes to council and mayor, does it also include all these folders, all these
No, sir.
paperwork that we get?
Now, this will be in your cost center, and like some council members are buying paper and toner, they could allocate that from that cost center.
Okay.
Or we could just have the city, I mean, that's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
that's why the committee would be great, because like, I'm okay with the city buying it. And
Right. Right, we
Right, but
developed
that was
these-
the argument that was,
$1,000 in printer paper and.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's like 19,000.
Remember, all these numbers, what you're seeing is increases in those particular line items, and those numbers are divided by 7 into those cost centers.
yeah, I don't know what historically we've used, but we have made the reason for the cost centers and separating it out that way is because in the past, council members have been able to potentially hide how much money they are spending by going through city staff. And so what this group has been trying to do is get it more clear and transparent so that you're responsible for the dollars that you spend. That's what the cost centers are all about.
I have a question. I'm sorry, I don't know if this falls under this category. So let's say we have to travel, and I have a lot of issues with reception. Can I borrow a hotspot from the city?
Sure.
Is that,
Work, yeah.
okay?
Yeah, you can
And then
do that
just
whenever.
return it, like I don't have to buy it?
you
All
have
right.
to return it.
You have to return it.
I will return it.
And then if the city is having to buy extras in order to give to council members, there's just a gray area there, because it's still the same question of, if we're taking resources from the city, that is an expense that the city is incurring, whether we're identifying that we're doing it in our budget, or the city is just providing that to us. Computers, for example, we all have computers. Those are expenses that the city paid that we're saying, oh, we don't take expenses, we don't, but yeah, we all have our computers, and they're necessary and valid, but we should have that in our budget so that we can all see what is taking place. If we're going for the transparency move, then there can be a technology budget allowed for each person, and they can spend that way. So just lots to think about, but we don't have to, the compensation committee, hopefully they'll look at all that and can make a recommendation.
All right, moving on to the city manager's budget. We have a $26,500 item for software for community engagement. This is a placeholder, as that's a function we've looked at for a couple of years to pursue, and this will allow us an allocation to pursue that next year. The same thing goes for the consultant services for record retention system. We know that our record retentions is getting kind of big, and there's got to be a better way to deal with it, and so that Jennifer and her staff don't spend so much time with it. So we're going to be exploring that. The $8,000 for a certificate program for management is, we have people in the city manager's office that might want to pursue their certified public management or some other type of training, and we think that's important, so we have that placeholder in there too. We've transferred out the $103,000 for the emergency management to its own separate cost center.
So is this software for community engagement, is that gonna have like, I know last year we were talking about, there was a software that we were gonna try to obtain where people could put it on their phone, and if they see something wrong in the city, they could take a picture and send it to us?
That's part of it, but it's not all of it.
Okay, I just wanna make sure it's in there. Thank you.
Building inspection, I'll let you look at the slide and review the history and the significant changes. I don't think there's anything surprising in here, but if you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. We'll note the addition of another permit coordinator. Moving on to the city secretary's office, we're adding an open records clerk as a position, as well as some equipment and software to help with records management and retention.
That title may change, council, to a records retention clerk.
Moving on to communications, you'll see the aforementioned brand ambassador services, some additional audio and video equipment, and other things. If you have any questions about those, we'll be happy to explain. Economic development, we're budgeting for an update to our economic development strategic plan and a business park feasibility study.
So does the director go in there? I mean, like, how does that work? Are we actively looking for an economic development director?
We are, but these are significant changes, and that's already in the budget.
That's already in there, okay, thank you.
Emergency management, this is the first full year that we really have this department, and so there's no changes. You can see the budget is primarily for the position, and we'll be working with the emergency management coordinator to further develop this department as we move forward. Engineering services, you'll see we've talked about the assistant city engineer, street pavement assessment study, and then a traffic engineer as well. Environmental services and trades. This is everything in here, things that we talked about during the previous work session. The detail is in your backup. If you have any specific questions, we're happy to address those.
I do have a question. So they want to hire, does it say, positions through?
We have 3 new technicians, and this goes into our plan as we build that department to allow those folks to take time off, to be sick, and when we do have a full staff and everybody's there, it gives us more flexibility to get more work done.
My only concern is if we're going to hire more and do the WLE, I think that's I think one has to give. So if we're gonna continue the WLE, which I think may be beneficial, maybe not 3, and maybe we can put one somewhere else, and that's to be talked about later, but my only concern is having the 3
We have an
positions.
analysis for that we can bring back.
Okay, yeah, that'd be great.
When we talk about it, but we believe that those work hand in hand and benefit the city to have both of them.
So how big is that department?
Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I actually have the cost analysis printed out. I ran it for the same amount of employees it would take for us to hire, equip all of their equipment, everything that they would need to replace WLE basically, and with the cost of all of their contracts and what it would cost us just to start with that same amount, if you would like to pass it out.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we'll pass that out, and you can look at it, and we can talk about it at our next work session.
Perfect.
Just wanna pass that out.
Jance, can you tell me how many people are in your department?
Yes, ma'am. 14, including myself and our admin. Right now, we also have an electrician and then a street sweeper, so the active amount that are actually out in the right-of-way are 10. What I had actually asked for in the budget originally was 6. It was another crew leader and 5 staff members to separate our right-of-way and then our beautification, to where they were dedicated to the gateway signs, landscaping, different areas around the city, was to separate that entirely.
Thank you.
Anything else on environmental services and trades? Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Our facilities, you see we're adding a building maintenance technician, a facility maintenance technician. A lot of preventive maintenance and replacements are included in this budget. And an increase of $128,000 for our custodial supplies and other support.
Yeah, Jerry, I noticed that there's only one facilities maintenance technician added. We're about to be done with the Public Safety Center in 2013. I'm looking at the size of that building. I don't believe one's gonna be sufficient for that. I think we actually would need to, just thinking about sizes of building, I'm thinking about Wallace Middle School right now in my mind, because I spent a lot of time there. There's a lead custodian and 3 custodians under them for that building, which is not the size of the building that we're proposing for the Public Safety Center. I'd like to see another one added to that, just
Okay,
throw it
well,
down.
we'll be ready to discuss that at the next
Sounds
budget
good.
workshop.
I'm just planting the seed.
I understand,
Thank you,
and
sir.
I actually can't argue that with you. Thanks for bringing that to our attention.
Actually, I kind of want to jump in, because what I want to say is that we're not prevented from making motions and giving direction here. It's just, the idea is to let staff be sort of the leaders in telling us their opinion first, and then we're giving some feedback. But if there's things we're kind of all in agreement on, because they need, once the budget's been presented to us, they're going to need direction from us in order to change it. So if they're, those conversations, but what you have to keep in mind, especially if you're trying to add, you can't just add without also having the source of revenue identified or a cut of some kind. So everything is in balance that gets proposed. So just something to consider. It's a lot easier to add if you're just wanting to add. It's a lot harder when you have to consider what other positions you might want to cut or, those kind of things.
And when we come back, we're taking notes of the things that we talk about, and when we come back, we'll be ready to discuss those. And
This would actually be a good time, I think, to give the motions for them to bring back proposals for specific things. If you have a particular code enforcement question and we're all in agreement, or maintenance, we can give that, and that way Pervez can tabulate it up and bring back a proposal for us after. We don't have to actually change the budget. It can be in the form of direction, though.
All right, and we're expecting changes. Yes, sir.
On that note, though, I would like to see both of them added. I would like to see a code enforcement and, I'm sorry, the animal control.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not trying to take away from,
The coordinator, the manager.
Yeah,
so
supervisor.
The supervisor would be over animal control and the building inspectors as well. So, yeah, he'd take on the role of both.
I hear your point. That's exactly why let's hear what the needs are first. Let's hear from staff what the needs are.
Well, I guess the
And then
point
also, we can then go back and say, we heard what they needed. We can go back and see what we can allocate if we need to add or subtract, because it is a dollar amount that's going to be
Right.
affected.
Well, but what they've heard is individuals saying what they individually want. So that's what I'm saying, is like to give some kind of general feedback from the body of us, the group, so that they can know really what the council will is for them to be bringing back, as opposed to just everybody's individual sort of opinions.
Sure, and I'd just like to add that everything you heard from the department directors at our previous work session and their wish list, every single one of those things was absolutely needed. And what we had to do is there's only so many assets and resources to be able to allocate to those things. So we had to make tough decisions about what stayed in and what didn't. That being said, we also have some flexibility to make changes. So, and that's why we come together in this group and work collaboratively to come up with the working budget for the next fiscal year. So I appreciate all your help with that. Financial services, we're going to outsource that entire department. So you'll see the highlights there. We talked about adding the customer service and billing manager, some additional customer service representatives, additional meter technicians, staff accountants, increases in fees that are driven by quantity. So in reclassification of one position, moving from an analyst to an actual manager. So any questions about financial services for next year? Human resources, you can see the significant changes here. We have the pay parity in there. We have classification compensation study that a third party will be doing. We're bringing on a compensation administrator. That's going to be key for this department, because not only is a lot of positions we're trying to fill already, but we're adding in excess of 50 positions next year. Each one of those positions requires a compensation study and evaluations as to the position descriptions and everything that goes in with that. So this is a very important position for human resources. And then you see the other amounts in there. Any questions or comments about human resources? Hearing none. Information technology, it's pretty straightforward. We've reallocated software and system fees to the various departments. We're adding a trainer and reclassifying one position. Library, we're reclassifying an assistant to a circulation supervisor, adding to the e-books collections, and upgrading some furniture.
That's not much. Okay, maybe next year we'll get a new one.
And next year, $15 million for a new library.
Okay, there you go.
So Parks and Recreation, significant changes. You can see the addition of technicians, reclassification of a technician to a coordinator. Equipment, I want to point out the significant increase in the 4th of July fireworks show for next year. And
What? Wait, that's 150,000?
it'll be a heck of a show, I promise.
Okay. Yeah, that's,
All right.
that's a
All right,
lot.
Mariana, you want to talk about 4th of July for next year?
Please.
Go for it.
First is Christmas, now it's 4th of July.
Mariana Espinoza, Parks and Recreation Director. So the plan for next year, when we get our brand-new La Verde Park open, is to have a day-long 4th of July celebration with vendors, entertainment, and then accumulating with a nice, wow, fireworks show.
Thank you.
Is the proposal of adding a 4th of July parade as well?
Very likely, sir.
Oh, thank you. You know we love parades.
Red, white, and CUDA.
All right, moving on, special events. I've moved special events over to Parks and Recreation. They have that program this year, and I think they're doing a great job. You can see the 2 signature events that we're proposing for next year, and money to enhance our special events. Any questions on that?
I do have a question. I would just like to know where we're at with the Textravaganza event and what the projected date for that is going to be, because I know it was supposed to be this year, but that didn't happen.
Right, it's for spring, late spring next year. It's still in the planning. Mariana, do you have anything to add?
So tentative planning dates for Textravaganza are Cinco de Mayo weekend, and we are getting prepared to post the RFP for a carnival and, of course, possible fireworks, just.
Perfect.
I just want to manage expectations here. Carnivals are really hard to come by, and but we're going to do our best to get a carnival.
I just need a funnel cake. However that gets here.
So, Mariana, you just heard an RFP for a funnel cake machine.
But we had to be collectively on board for that.
So one of the things is, with all the carnivals that we reached out to, most of them in the summer are gone. They all go up north. They go up to Wyoming, Montana, South Dakota. They're all up north. During summer months, they come back to Texas in the winter months because our winters are pretty mild. So that's kind of how they travel. And it's a little sad because when you want a carnival here in the summertime, you're not probably going to achieve that.
Right, and the ones that are here are generally booked year-round, and they come back to where they were the year before. So they usually don't have a lot of room on their calendar. But we're going to do our best to get a carnival.
I have a quick question for Parks and Rec. So if I would like to show you all something that to be considered for this budget season, what would be the process for that?
Email us your suggestion and we'll.
Okay, because I know I messaged you guys about the lights, but I saw something in a different park that I would love to propose and see if it's like a ginormous pumpkin and kids come and take pictures for fall. So I would love to have something like that for people to come all November and take pictures with the pumpkins. So I will email you that.
If you'll email that to us, we'll look into it. We'll bring it back at the next.
Thank
A great pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I
Oh,
love
that's
that.
gonna be
awesome.
me. You'll see me dressed orange all fall.
For our planning department, we're adding some consulting services and some other minor things. We can answer questions about that if you have any. Okay, 1 of 2 departments, it has more than one slide. This is for the police department. Once again, you'll see the additional money for the meet and confer. The other part of the meet and confer agreement is reclassifying the captain position, which goes away under this agreement, to assistant police chief. And you see the additional positions and additional equipment we're proposing in this budget for our police department. We've taken note of your comments also. We'll bring those back.
So you guys are already good at having the budget 1 additional animal control officer?
Yes, ma'am.
Well, that makes me excited to see all these additions. We're gonna fill that building up.
Yes, I just go back to the addition of 51 new positions in our organization for next year. Significant investment in how we provide services and how we make our community even better. And it's a group effort with staff and council to be able to make that happen.
I just need to ask a quick question to Chief again. I'm sorry to ask the same question again. So who will be the supervisor for the code enforcement and for animal control? What would be that position?
The current supervisor of those 2 divisions, animal control and code enforcement, is the special services supervisor, which is Sergeant Gooding.
Okay. And if you were to have a different supervisor, what was the name of the position? I think you mentioned.
The proposed position that we had in earlier budgets was the neighborhood services division that we would create and move them out. They would become their own division, and it would be the neighborhood services supervisor.
And that person will be the supervisor for code enforcement and animal control?
Correct.
Okay, and that's not something we have right here, correct?
Not on the sheets before you now, correct.
Okay, so could I make a motion to try to bring numbers or proposal to add that position to the police department.
Second.
Can you repeat your motion?
Okay, to ask staff to please bring backup material to add the neighborhood services position to be added to the police budget.
All right, so the motion's made to add the neighborhood services position to the police budget, or to bring back a proposal.
Yes.
And made by Councilmember Parsley, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo. Is there discussion on the motion? I thought maybe we would do it all at the same time at the end, as we wanted to make our motions.
I didn't
so that
wanna
we could-
forget.
Just so that we could keep them clear. I understand, so, Councilmember Floresco.
Is there also a way that we can get a, like, a description of job duties? So we kind of completely understand what it is they're going to be doing?
That'd be great. Yeah, definitely.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
I just want to add, in terms of managing expectations, that the budget before you, the proposed budget before you is balanced.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, we gotta,
We're gonna have to find,
And there's some wiggle room that we can create, but a lot of times, if we're going to add something, we're going to have to identify something to take out. So, and we'll, like for the position you just nominated, we'll work with Chief Barnett to figure out how to make that happen within his budget.
okay.
Moving into Public Works, our other two-slide department. You can see the significant changes in there. You have to speak wastewater and water to be able to understand half of them, but you can look through those on the slides and let us know if you have any questions. And once again, everything is detailed in your backup. Any questions or comments on Public Works? All right, so now we're going to move into our capital improvements program and highlights of our CIP spending plan. The highlights, there's 112 new and continuing multi-year projects in our proposed budget, totaling $123.4 million in estimated spending next year for these on-the-ground, one-time capital improvements to our community. We've accounted for $70 million estimated for our 2022 road bond program. And you can go through the rest. I won't read it to you. And ask if you have any questions about what you see. And these are just the highlights. This certainly isn't all the CIP projects, but they are all detailed in your backup. Next, we'll go over our outstanding debt, and I'll let Pervez walk you through this one.
So in the city manager's proposed budget, $13.8 million is provided for the repayment of principal on our existing debt and interest payments that will be due in fiscal year '23. Yeah, it's important to note that this debt service amount does not include the $8 million that we're talking about or have been talking about that TERS number 2 will issue sometime early part of next fiscal year. Our total debt outstanding will be $123.8 million on October 1, 22, the first day of fiscal year. That assumes we will be issuing $38 million in GO bond issue for public safety and parks in August. So our financial advisor and our bond counsel will be coming before you in August for the final sale of the bond. And then the last bullet, I wanted to show you how we have been repaying our debt. It's about roughly $6 million a year that we pay back on principal. So in 2016, our long-term debt balance was $90.5 million. And since the last payment, it was $91.8 million. And then we'll go back up to $123.8 million because of the $38 million we're going to issue in August.
Public Safety Center.
Yes, sir. 37 million of that is for the Public Safety Center, and another million is for our parks planning and design. That covers the debt position.
All right, just,
I wanted to bring up at this point a couple CIP considerations for us to make. So in your big budget item on page 218, there's the property acquisition item. So this is one we're familiar with and that the council's been using, which is why I'm kind of bringing it up. It looks to me like there's no replenishment of that fund. So if the proposal is going to be that we continue to try to have funds available when the opportunity comes for property acquisition, that might be something we want to try to make an adjustment on. So I'm looking at item number 14. It says LGC property acquisition, which LGC is local government corp, which we never established, but it is still an effective CIP category. So I believe at the beginning of the year, last year was 1.2. We've made 2 acquisitions out of that, and we're working on a third. So the question to the council is there a desire to see that item replenished? To keep a budget item for property acquisition?
Yeah, I thought that was something that just happened yearly. I guess we have to replenish it.
Well, we never did it before. We never had an item such as the one we just created. And we created it and we used it. And I think to great effect, we acquired 2 very strategic properties for the city. And it's easier when it's budgeted, frankly, but obviously it's not the only way to do it. We can do it outside of the budget. But this at least signals that we are gonna be, buyers when the opportunity arises to acquire strategic parcels. So.
I thought it was a yearly budget that we had, item that was budgeted automatically, but yeah, definitely would love to replenish that because there's, in case an opportunity presents itself, to where we could, expand services for the citizens of Kyle would be important. So yeah, definitely strategic areas.
so what we're saying is we want to keep those funds available.
Yeah, replenish it for the new
Replenish it back
budget.
in the event that in later time,
There's
to
enough
let the people know, as our city grows, we need possible land for city staff or a facility or a maintenance building or something.
Right.
And
And this would also be a good time just to remind us that when we're talking about this section of the budget, it's like a different mindset that we have to have. These are CIPs versus when we're talking about positions, because you create a position, that's a recurring commitment that goes on. So that's why maybe you're looking at $1 million over here, but a CIP might be 100,000. But it could be easier to do $1 million in a CIP than 100,000 for a position, just because of the way our O&M and maintenance work and interest works. But
What was the initial value? What
I
did we
can't-
start it
I
with?
think it was 1.2, or it might have been 1.3, or it could have been 1.1.
Could you
It was
remember?
1.1.
1.1, okay, it was close. So, and that number came because there was a particular property we were thinking about purchasing, which we never did, which is across the street. And that was the number we thought we might have to have put in, but it ended up being a pretty good amount because it gave us options for lots of different properties.
I would say probably good to have 1.5 in there. I don't know if it makes sense to anybody. Just to have
That would
a
have,
close number.
that would
I
have
mean, I
solved
don't
the
know.
issue we're having now, because we are gonna have to amend our current budget, potentially, if we acquire additional property that we might be considering acquiring. So that would have solved it. That would have allowed for us to do it.
So pretty much this 252 is like our balance.
It's what's
It's-
left
yeah.
over.
That's what's left.
Just
So that's our balance.
1.25 more,
So-
and then
so-
we have 1.5
Yeah,
in
so
there.
the 1.1 plus the 252 would take us up to,
What?
1.7, yeah, almost 2. Yep, I think 1.5 would be good. 1.5, yeah, I like that idea, actually. I could get behind something like that. That'd be great.
Because I think if you stick just another $1 million in there, it's still 150,000 more than we had last year. And if we have leftover this year,
Why increase it, is what you're saying?
no, I'm just saying if you just,
Well, Well,
If
I
you
would
put
prefer-
$1 million back in there, then now we're still $100,000 ahead of what we were last year.
I was just saying, depending on the property that comes available, we want to buy. If we have less, I don't know.
Well,
It
so
would
what I
just
would,
have to-
what I would suggest we do is we, instead of trying to put finance on the spot for how to balance it, is that we allow for them, we're not actually amending it. We're gonna ask them to make a proposal and show us how they would accomplish that. And then that gives them a little bit of time to look at the math, because the next one I'm gonna make is the next one I want us to look at is 4 million. That's the only two big ones. So there is in our visioning workshop, we had we acquired back in 2016, we acquired 104 South Burleson. In our visioning workshop in February, we committed to funding a project for a building. And we anticipated, based on the preliminary studies that we did, a budget of somewhere between 6 and 10 million. Staff has put in a budget of 6 on the low end, but I think we have initiated design. I've already spent the money to design 104 South, and there's going to be discussions about that, but I think their recommendation is, their design is 10. I don't know exactly what the number was, I just heard, but I want us to be considering that might be something for us to, we're either going to have an under-budgeted facility, or we're going to have to reduce the scope, or we're gonna need to increase it to cover that cost. And so that's something we just need to bring up. We need to have that conversation. I know we've committed to funding this thing and building it, but right now, it's proposed in this budget, and that is on item number,
Yeah, it's item 10 right here on page 217.
yeah, item number 10. So that it's proposed at a total of 6 plus the engineering, but we've already been spending the money, and what the million, I suppose, and what they've designed is on the higher end, which is within the range of what we consider that it might be. But I would like for us to at least consider having a proposal brought to match what we hired BGK to design.
Right, and we've already discussed that, and we'll have that ready for you.
Can I ask how much we've already spent on that building with plans that we have not used?
Councilmember, I'll have to research that and bring that back to council.
Thank you. My whole concern is just, if we're gonna do this, it's gotta be done. It can't be no more, we're changing our mind, because.
No, we're already past that point.
yes.
I think we've
You-
spent
yeah,
the
I
money to
totally get
design
it, but what I'm
I totally
saying
agree with
is-
you. I mean, I totally agree
what
with
we
you,
said in
Councilmember
February.
Kell. I think we are fully committed to this now, and we need to see it to fruition. So yeah, I definitely agree with your statement.
All right, well, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to bring back a proposal for increasing the budget for property acquisition to 1.5 million, and to consider fully, whatever budget amendments are required or changes are required to fully fund the proposal from BGK on 104 South
Second.
Burleson. Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in
Yeah,
fa-
I wasn't in the favor of the 1.5. I don't mind sticking, the $1 million in there and increasing that. But I don't want to do the 1.5.
Well, it's a proposal, so it'll be you'll have the opportunity to.
Say yes or no.
To say yes or no in a future, this is not amending the budget, it's just asking them to bring back a proposal, so. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
All right, motion carries 5 to 1. Do we want to go back? I know we're right at the end. I think was that it, Pervez?
Just got a few more slides.
A couple more slides, okay.
So the next slide is the other city funds. Like I mentioned earlier, we have 44 total funds. This is just examples of what some of those other funds are. Certainly no means even close to an exhaustive list. The proposed budget that we've just presented for fiscal year 2022-23, all this information is available on our website. And you can see that link here on your slide, and it will be prominent on our website. We'll also have hard copies available for the proposed budget here at City Hall and at our public library. We are in the middle of our budget process. This is where the city manager presents his proposed budget for the next fiscal year. We have 2 more scheduled work sessions that will include from the council what they would like to see changed, added, or deleted, as well as the first reading of an ordinance for our budget and property tax rates. And then on the 25th is the current scheduled final reading of the budget ordinance and final changes to the budget.
Before we close, I've got one more item I'd like to bring forward for staff to consider and the council as well, and that's the Opticom system that would allow our officers to change the lights on our red light system, but it would also help our first responders when it comes to EMS, fire. This is something that I would really love to see come to fruition, and the reason why is that minutes matter, seconds matters. If we have an active shooter situation, being able to get those officers there quickly is very important. If somebody has a fire in their home, getting fire department there would be crucial. Minutes count. A heart attack. And I can testify to this one. In 2002, my 36-year-old brother passed away and minutes counted. And to be able to get those officers there in time, or the ambulances, anybody that could perform life-saving procedures is important. So I would really like us to consider adding the Opticom system. It would be a collaboration between us and the fire department. The Opticom system is about $94 per month for the lights, 18 lights total in the city of Kyle. That cost would be about $20,000 a year. On top of that, we would have an expense for retrofitting our police cars. We've got 60 vehicles that are identified. That number could go down. We've got, what is it right here? They're $60 a month, and we have 35 vehicles, Chief, is that correct? That would utilize the Opticom system?
Yes, sir, approximately, yes.
Yeah, and, but we could scale that back if needed. This is a system that, the red lights, we would only pay for half of them. They're $94 a month. The fire district would pay for half of it as well. So that $20,000 a year number would come down to $10,000 for the city of Kyle, a little over $10,000. And the only thing we're paying for is that $10,000 plus the vehicles as well. I think this is a very important system that we need, that's long overdue, and I'd really like to see us go forward. So at this time, I'd like to make a motion to direct staff to try to find the funding for the Opticom system for our police cars.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Parsley. You didn't do it that time either? Second by Councilmember Bradshaw. No, Councilmember Florescale. I'm sorry. I swear, I don't know why it sounds like you were doing it. It's easier when I'm up there, strangely enough. All right, is there discussion on that motion?
I have a discussion real quick. If we're going to direct staff to look into this database or system, we could have a review of what it would do, the usage, how it would work, and to see how the funding would be. So are you saying also the fire department's going to contribute their part into this?
They're going to be doing their part, so they'll be paying half of the red light system. So the red light system, to have it on the system, is $94 each per month, which averages out to $20,000 a year. The fire district would take on half of that cost, which would be $10,000. So this is not only going to benefit our police department, it's going to benefit our EMT and our fire district as well.
And they're on board with the cost?
Correct. I've talked to Chief Taylor, and he actually is very excited about this and looking forward to being able to make sure that we get to our calls in a timely response. You know, we have a couple of things in our city that keep us from doing that. One is the train, which is a new rail siding that's proposed in the future is going to help alleviate some of that. The PD now being moved to an area that can access over a bridge past the train is going to be crucial. But now, as we're bringing in more red lights, we don't want our officers sitting at a light when they can get through quickly. We always think about the lights on the vehicle, but we all know, we've all talked about it, people just don't adhere to those lights on the vehicle. They don't pull over, they just continue as they're not there. So I think this is something that's long overdue and is greatly needed in our city.
Okay, so we're going to get collaboration with the fire department and our police department on the funding on that.
Correct. Except for the vehicles. Our vehicles will pay for completely out of our budget, because that's our vehicles. They'll pay for their vehicles.
So the
Yeah,
fire
this is-
department will pay their share.
Their share for
And
their
so-
vehicles, and then half of the lights as well, for the
Okay.
red lights that change. You have a system in there that has a cost, monthly cost.
Okay.
This might be something that, with this direction, as they're bringing it in the budget, we could add it in a future agenda item and let Chief Taylor as well come and present to us, if that'd be something, because there's gonna be a contract associated with it.
Exactly.
It'll have to come before council.
Exactly.
We'll get the more in-depth, but I think that's better that than license plate readers, in my opinion. So, Chief smiles, because him and I have gone round and round. Any further discussion on that item?
No, I just want to thank the council. I think this is very important. I think this measure will help save a lot of lives and a lot of property as well. When you think about public safety, this is going to be a very important measure moving forward. Thank y'all.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries. So are there any more direction we want to give? Because I think right now, staff's going to take the direction that we're giving in votes to bring back proposals. So, right, but I'm trying to, well, that's why I was trying to bring that up then, and I've been trying to kind of re-emphasize, the earlier we give clear feedback as a council to staff, the better, because this is budget number 7, I think, for me, and I've seen budgets, the best budgets happen when we give feedback early on, so that we're not trying to make moves late in the game, like on second reading when nobody has time to think about what's being proposed, but we have to make a vote right then and there. So these direction votes that we're giving to propose, for staff to propose things, gives them time, and it also gives us time to be processing, so we know what's coming, as opposed to playing things close to the chest and trying to make moves with individual departments or just waiting around until the very end, so.
Mayor and council, I can read my list and y'all can vote on each item as direction.
Okay.
Great.
The first item I have on my list is from Councilmember Rizzo to consider adding $500,000 for a new park design.
So I'd like to make a motion to add that.
Second.
All right, it's motion by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Tobias, that we add $500,000 for park design. You have a specific something in mind there?
Yeah, right now, we're having talks with with Hayes County on building a park on the northeastern side of our city, which has a park district right now. And hopefully, everything comes to fruition and we're able to accomplish this. This will be a very beautiful park, but it'll have a lot of minis as well. And hopefully it comes to fruition for those people there. There's nothing out there.
All right, anyone else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0. These are all just direction to bring proposals back,
Yes.
we're not affecting the budget until we've had a
Right.
chance to look at it. Okay.
That's correct. Next item is from Councilmember Flores Kale to consider adding $10,000 for arts in public places.
I would like to make a motion to bring back a proposal for arts in the amount of $15,000.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Flores Kale, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo to increase have staff bring back a proposal to increase the arts budget from 50 to 65,000. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Next item is also from Councilmember Flores Kale to consider adding additional FTEs for parks maintenance
Additional what? Sorry.
positions.
Positions, yes, for our Vibe Trail and for, yeah, I'd like to make a motion to have staff bring back a proposal with, I guess, 2 additional staff for parks, trails.
Second.
So here's my thing. Just based off these numbers right here, it is more expensive to do it in-house rather than included in in outsourcing and included in a contract. So I'm tempted to say, maybe opt for this as the vibe is being built out, and then gradually add in those people. Because I hear you, and I agreed with you until I saw these numbers, and I was like, holy cow. It's much more expensive to hire in full-time employees to maintain than it is to outsource.
But I'd love to see what the number comes back, so if we could just, because we're not voting on it, adding them, we're just voting to bring the direction to see what those numbers look like.
Could we add maybe a cost comparison to see what it would be for those FTEs versus outsourced maintenance of the Vibe Trail for the projected?
Yeah, I like that idea. That's
Sure, and there's a difference between maintenance and construction of the trails, so.
Right,
we have to-
but I think that was what you said you had, just because there is more to maintain for them, right? You
Yeah,
specifically
there
named the
is,
Vibe
and there
Trail.
is going to be.
Yes,
So
there certainly
my
is.
my fear is we're not even at capacity right now. And so thinking about the future, my hope was to add a little bit, 1 or 2 each year until we're at
Sure.
the place where we can
We'll
maintain.
bring that back.
All right, so the motion was made by Councilmember Flores Kale and seconded by Councilmember Parsley that we add 2 FTEs to the Parks and Maintenance budget. Is there discussion on that? And we want to make an amendment to bring back a cost comparison?
I don't think it's to add.
If you want to
bring back the
amend, or I can
numbers.
just make a motion,
Yeah,
a
let's just see if we
second.
can make- yeah. She can make a different motion.
I'll make a motion. for the
Okay,
cost
all right,
comparison.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Councilmember Bradshaw.
I would like to make a motion for staff to bring back a cost comparison as to what it would cost to maintain the Vibe Trail for the next 5 years. I wouldn't even say 5 years. Let's just keep it annual, but next annual budget, and versus the full-time employees and equipment that Councilmember Flores Kale has proposed.
Second.
All right, motion by Councilmember Bradshaw, seconded by Councilmember Tobias, that we bring back a proposal for next year for cost comparison or cost analysis for maintaining the Vibe Trail. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 6-0.
Is there anything else?
There's one more item that council hasn't voted on. This is from Councilmember Rizzo. Consider adding 1 building technician for the public safety building.
So, again, you know, the building's going online 2013, right now with one facility maintenance person added to that. It's too large of a building for it. I think at the minimum 2. Really, I'd like to see 3, but let's go with 1 because we're already adding a lot to the budget. So I'd like to make a motion to add 1 more to the budget.
Second.
Motion by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, seconded by Councilmember Flores Kale, that staff brings back a proposal to increase the building maintenance technician allocation for the police department by an additional FTE. Is there discussion on that motion?
Is there a way we can get job description on both? Because if you're going to have 2 people out there, is one going to be waxing the floors, the other one going to be mopping the floors? Or is it one's going to be outside weeding, or, you know, it's just an overall direction as far as if we're going to need to have 2 people there, even though I know half the building is going to be empty, the daily duties of these people, of these individuals, what would they be tasked on?
If you want to make a separate motion for that, we can do that.
Okay.
After we do mine, let's make a separate motion for that. So right now, we've got the motion for the extra FTE for building maintenance.
Yeah, okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 6-0.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion in referencing the 2 FTE positions to bring job descriptions and job duties for both positions.
All right, motion by Councilmember Tobias, seconded by Mayor Pro Tem Rizzo, that we bring back job descriptions and job duties for the new FTEs that we're adding. Is there a discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed. Motion carries 6-0.
Mayor, one more item. We discussed it, but we didn't actually vote on it, unless I just didn't write it. This is from you, Mayor Mitchell. Consider adding funding for property acquisitions and consider adding funding for the 104 South Burleson project.
We voted on that one.
We already voted on this.
Okay.
And the motion was to match the funding to the proposal, so I didn't give an exact number on 104. So I can't remember exactly what it is, the number.
Whatever the funding is.
All right. I like that better because it gives clarity to staff. They know that what they're working on is coming from all of us. And then also we have to keep in mind, as we go through this, it's going to be tempting to want to keep adding and making adjustments and alterations. It's going to take a lot, because I don't know how many FTEs that we potentially added there. 5, maybe? Something like that. That's going to be a tall order for staff. So the goal here is to build consensus on this budget. So, and I just want to say, and I think we're all going to agree here, considering the fact that we're in a kind of a limbo with city management, that this is impressive, honestly. I was worried that there were going to be items omitted but honestly, this is a well put together budget. And I think I want to commend the council too. I thought we did a really thorough job compared to what it could have been, that's because we didn't start this until 6, so it's 2 hours and 10 minutes. And we gave a good look and good feedback. So I'm actually really proud of the last 2 hours here, so good job.
Yeah, I just want to
Thank you, Jerry, and
as
your
well.
people
Perez,
for helping
Jerry,
out.
your teams, all the staff, thank y'all. That's department heads, it's everybody for bringing by and bringing their recommendations. Thank you very much. I know it takes a lot of work to bring these recommendations, and there's a lot of cuts you do immensely yourself. So just thank you for all the work you put in.
And to make it so clear that I'm being new, I understand everything, so thank you.
Hats off to Perez and his team, because they did the real work.
Yes, thank you.
He's thinking of a joke related to the charter right now. I can see it. He's trying to come up with it. All right, any other discussion?
So
Motion?
we have one more agenda item, and we have an executive session.
Oh, yes.
But I do have a question about an agenda item is it too late to go back? I have a question about the first agenda item. I did not realize, and I may have to reconsider the vote, and we can bring it back, because I don't want a point of order. But I didn't realize it went into effect, not right now, but in September, I think is when it was. And my initial want was to put it into it, because, and I have a question for legal, because if it passes 7-0, then it could just pass, but we don't have 7 members. So do we need to bring it back for a second, where I can then, discuss?
Well, so
the issues?
the items to bring forward a resolution, so you're going to get your chance at it.
Okay, so we can, okay.
It'll come back to us for a vote, but we cannot finally pass anything with a 6-member board.
Perfect.
So
Thank you.
And it would require 2. All right, so next up is agenda item, I was about to motion to adjourn, I was out of here. All right, consider a resolution to record city council's vote to place a proposal on the agenda of a future city council meeting as an action item to adopt an ad valorem tax rate for fiscal year 2022-2023 for the city of Kyle, making findings of fact and providing for related matters. Roll call vote requested. This has got Mr. Hendrix on it, but I think,
You did a fine job, Mayor.
yeah. Motion to approve.
Second.
All right, motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias, that we approve agenda item number 5. Is there discussion on that motion? Roll call vote.
Mitchell,
Aye.
Bradshaw. Tobias,
Aye.
Rizzo,
Aye.
Parsley,
Aye.
Ellison is absent, Flores Kale.
Aye.
All right, motion carries 6-0. Next up is executive session. Who wants it?
I guess I'll go ahead. Pursuant to Chapter 551 Texas Government Code, the City Council reserves the right to convene into executive sessions from time to time as deemed necessary during this meeting. The City Council may convene into executive session pursuant to any lawful exception contained in Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code, including any or all of the following topics. Number 1, pending or complicated litigation, or to seek the advice of the city attorney pursuant to Section 551-071. 2, possible purchase, exchange, lease, or value of the real estate pursuant to Section 551-072, to deliberate the purchase of real property for public purpose, downtown property acquisition. Number 3, personal matters pursuant to Section 551074. To convene into executive session pursuant to the Section 55187 Texas Government Code to deliberate regarding the offer of economic incentives to one or more business prospects that the city seeks to have, locate, stay, or expand in or near the city. We are in executive session.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting back to order. There was no action taken during executive session. There will be action taken now. I'd like to make a motion to approve an earnest money contract for the purchase of property located at 107 Veterans Drive in the amount of $500,000, and to authorize the mayor or city manager to execute all documents needed to close on the property purchase of the property.
Second.
Motion by the mayor, seconded by Councilmember Tobias. Is there discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed. Motion carries 6-0. Motion adjourned.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned.